Hey, welcome back, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome to Utter Lunacy, which is a podcast and YouTube channel where I talk about mostly African movies and TV shows, and I examine the stories that they're telling about race, class, gender, women. Um, Most recently, I did, what is that show called? The Smart Money Woman out of Nigeria, and I enjoyed doing that, so check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. Today, however, I want to take a slight departure, and I'm not going to be talking about an African movie or TV show. I want us to talk instead about the podcast that recently took social media by storm, at least in Nairobi, called So This Is Love. The podcast called So This Is Love, but it was the story of Sophia and Bumpy in particular. So I want to, through this story and through three others, there's one by a lady called June, and her story was on Lingogi's show, and then Njeri Migwi, the interviews she did with Kalechi Momo and also Lingogi. So those are the three stories I'm going to use to talk about the way we talk about abuse, the way we tell the stories about abuse. To be clear, a few things before we jump in. Number one, I really appreciate these women who came out and told their stories. We live in a society that shames you when terrible things are done to you. Somehow it's always the victim's fault. And so coming out and telling your story is something that people will judge you for and sort of put shame on you about it. It's commendable. It's incredibly commendable. So thank you. First of all, I appreciate that. Thank you. These stories are saving lives. Second, so I haven't experienced anything that these women have. I have no personal experience of that kind of abuse. I do not. However, I am a student of abuse. I am a student of gender relations in a lot of ways. I spent a good chunk of last year digging through academic papers on abuse and everything they had to say about it. So what causes it? What kind of risk factors are at play? What kind of people find themselves in this situation? Why don't women leave? Why are abusive men like this? Why are they doing this? I also read a lot of abusive what? I read a lot of books on abuse. I've read Why Does It Do That by Landy Bancroft, which everyone has read and everyone should read. I'm currently reading Coercive Control by Evan Stark and just a bunch of other things in the middle. So I am just a person who is very curious and very interested in the subject of abuse because, number one, I'm a woman and I am at a high risk of finding myself on the wrong side of abuse. And I think that that's part of it. It's almost a way of protecting myself. It's like, okay, I'm gonna arm myself with as much knowledge as I can possibly gather about this thing to keep myself safe. So those are the two things you should know going in. I haven't experienced it myself, and I would hate to for it to look like I'm speaking over these women. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just curious about the similarities in their stories, the things that keep coming up, and just the way that we tell the stories. What do we focus on? What do we keep coming back to? That's what I'm curious about. That's what I'm really interested in. Okay, so the way this is gonna work, while listening to the Bumpy story, the June story, and also Njeri Migwi's story, I cut the clips. So Njeri and Lynn's, and not Lynn. Why do I keep calling her Lynn? What's her name? So now I even made it go. June, Njeri, and I think her name is June. Why am I like this though? Just give me a minute. I'm so sorry. In my defense though, not that not that I keep coming up with excuses, but in my defense, this is my first time sort of doing a live type of recording. I much prefer going through the writing and like refining what I'm gonna say and then recording that and editing it. And so this is my first time doing this, and I am really freaked out. I'm really nervous, but also really excited. It's really different. It's different. It's more of a challenge than I think the other method, because the other method is safe. Like, I write down the script, I edit it, I do the research, and then I record it, and I get to cut it. And when I say nonsense, I cut that out. And today, when I say nonsense, it's gonna be stuck with me. So anyway, I'm gonna use the stories from the lives of June, Sophia, and Njeri Migwi. And once again, thank you so much to these women for contributing these stories. They're teaching us a lot and they're saving lives. So the way this is gonna work is I'm gonna play the clips. I was gonna do June and Jerry's story last year, and then life happened to me, and so it really turns out like I think it's gonna work out just because doing the three stories together gives me an opportunity to actually see what are these common themes that keep coming up, what are these common things that we keep repeating. All right, cool. I'm gonna play the clip, the section, and then I'm gonna talk about it a little bit, and yeah, and then we'll see throughout as we go on the common things that keep coming up. All right. I'm gonna start with Sophia and Bumpy because it's the most recent story and the one that's really fresh in people's minds, and so I'm excited to use that to sort of keep going with it. I'm gonna use Sophia's story and then we're gonna go to the other clips. Alright, cool.
3-4 months into the relationship, issues with the baby mama from his end started rising and rising fast and heavy. We moved from being in our honeymoon to the baby mama texting me in a span of very short time. At that time, she'd text me with entitlement, for lack of a better word, because she knew she was a baby mama and she knew that this man had vowed to marry her. So in her eyes, I was like this bug that is coming to destroy their nice relationship, their nice parenthood that they're doing together. And every time I take the story back to Bumpy, it would be, no, she's dramatic. She already knows that nothing can happen and the likes. Me being my first time in such a dynamic, I was just like, you know what, it's okay. I'd take his word because he's the one who's here with me and I get to see him every day. So I trusted his word and took it blindly. So even if she'd text me, I'd have no problem because she's texting me and maybe I've spent the night in his house and she's texting me, I spent the night at his house yesterday and I'm like, I was with him during the day. So I was just like, you know what, it's okay. So we had that baby mama issue going for a while, for about 2 months or 3. And then one specific day, it became, I need time. And I'm like, you just can't come to me and ask me for time. What's the time for?
Okay, so one of the things that is very common with abusers is they like not all kinds of abusers. There are different types of abusers, but there's a type of abuser that really enjoys that attention where women are fighting over him, and Bumpy really enjoyed that. He constantly had all these other women in play, and then they'd fight about it. She'd find out, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I sent this text message," and then it's a fight. And he really enjoys that. Abusive men enjoy being the center of attention. It's the most important thing for them, for the world to circulate around them. And another thing that's really interesting, that I think that we all need to learn about abusive men is the liars. The liars. Not Bumpy, sorry. Bancroft talks about how when an abusive man tells you something about his ex, you don't believe it. You don't believe it. Whenever possible, you find that woman and you ask her yourself, you talk to her. Because abusive men are the kings of just falsehoods and manipulations. They do not tell the truth. And so Bumpy's out here telling this girl that his ex is just dramatic, that she's not supposed to believe him. She says with her own mouth that he had essentially promised to marry this girl, and so this woman thought that Bumpy, I guess, belongs to her. It's like, this is abusive men. This is abusive men. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're caught in this triangle where you keep fighting with other women over a guy, it's time to leave. This is the kind of thing abusive men enjoy. Let me see. Let's go to the next clip.
So are you with the mother of your child because you're way too defensive? Or do you want to move on and be with me? He's like, I am with you. I am dating you. I'm not seeing anybody else. And I'm like, the last time I checked, people who are dating actually communicate visually. Like, your communication is whack. It literally feels like I'm begging you to communicate with me, which is not what I want, which is not what we were. So, no. And he's like, you know what? That's fine. And he started, it feels like you can't take leadership from a man. And I was like, okay, so I can't take leadership because I'm telling you of the tone we set for this relationship and you are going against the tone. So now I'm telling you about it and now it becomes I'm the one who cannot take leadership from a man.
So, once again, fighting with another woman over a man. Let me see if I can get that Bancroft clip where he's like, you do not believe him when he talks about other women in his life. Let me just see that. I hope this is it.
Both of the above scenarios involve an abusive man who keeps getting women to focus on each other's behavior rather than his. He relies partly on popular negative stereotypes of women, from which women themselves are not immune. Women are conditioned, for example, to see one another as catty, conniving, and eager to steal men from other women. Meanwhile, he gets to remain a player, which is what he wants. On a couple of occasions, my colleagues and I have overheard clients in the waiting area joking and laughing about ways in which women fall for these machinations, as if their ability to get away with it reinforced their masculinity. How to stop this routine? Women can interfere with these manipulations if they keep the following principles in mind. 1. An abusive man lies a lot. Don't believe what he tells you about what is happening in his relationships with other women, including what those women have supposedly said about you. 2. Communicate directly with other women as much as possible to compare stories about what he is saying and doing so that he can't play you off against each other. 3. If a man cheats, that is 100% his own responsibility. Don't let him channel your anger toward the other woman as if he were the helpless victim of a seduction. Abusive men love to portray themselves as unable to control their hormonal urges, which is nonsense. 4. Apply the principle of no third chances. When a man, especially an abusive one, cheats for the second time, that means that more affairs will follow, no matter what promises he may make.
Okay, so add to the, I think we're clear. Abusive men, they lie. They lie. As much as possible, you talk to the woman yourself. You do not believe these stories that she's dramatic and she's lying and all of these things. The other thing is, she says that she got to this place where it's the beginning of the relationship and she feels like she's begging him to communicate. She talks about him blocking her and not answering her calls. And it's like, that kind of behavior does not get better. The way people behave in the beginning of a relationship is their best work. For the most part, it's their best work. They're trying to hook you up, hook you in, reel you in. They're trying to reel you in. That's their best behavior. Things only get worse from there. They do not get better. Oh yeah, before we move on to the next clip, he talks about how she can't, the problem is with her. So abusive men always switch it up so that the fault is on you. It's always your fault. It's never their fault. The responsibility never lies with them. So in this case, all she's asking for is, can we communicate better? She's raising a concern. And what is he saying? He's saying her problem is she cannot take leadership from a man. What? Second, are we really on second? I don't even know, I've lost track. But the important thing is, at least the way I see it, men who want to take leadership, men who want to be in charge of things, are dangerous men. Abuse is primarily about control. The primary thing an abuser wants is to be in charge. They want the power, the control to be with them. They want to be the final authority on everything. So, a man who wants to be in charge, a man who constantly or even ever talks about being the leader and talks about you not being able to take leadership, which really just means you not being able to take instruction, you're not being able to follow their commands, to be under their authority, under their command, under their control. That's all that means. They want to control you. The primary thing an abuser wants is to control you, to be the one with the say in the relationship. So a man who says you can't take leadership is telling you you're impeding his ability to control you. The last thing you want, or at least I'm gonna just talk about myself here, and avoid giving advice. I would never, and I mean I would never fuck around with a nigga that wanted to be in charge, that wanted to be the leader, that wanted any form of control and authority. What are you talking about? No, what are you talking about? We're in a relationship of motherfucking equals. What are you talking about? I can't take leadership. Leadership from who? Relationships do not need a leader. What they need is partners, people working together. That's what relationships need. They do not need a leader. A man who wants to be a leader is a man who wants control. And control is at the root of abuse. That's the thing you should always remember. Abuse is primarily about control. Okay, let's see.
I'm now finished training and now I'm working and then I'm still schooling now.
Okay, just to give some background, they dated for a while and then they're broken up. And then she bumps into him, or they bump into each other, and they're sort of catching up. So she's like, yeah, I finished the training, blah, 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 I finished school. All right, cool. So they're giving each other an update after a brief breakup.
So he didn't know any of it. So when we bumped into each other at home, he asked me, how is waitressing? How is the training? And I'm like, I stopped waitressing. I finished training as well. And now I'm an assistant and I'm schooling. He's like, oh, nice, congratulations. And he's like, actually, I was about to call you. I was like, why? He's like, no, I'm sorry about what I said earlier. And I realized that I was the one who was wrong. And I'm like, okay, that's good. Then I asked, what do you want? You're about to call me. Is that what you wanted to say? He's like, no, I had more, but I want you to come home as I cook for you dinner, and then we can talk more. And I'm like, no, it's late. One, you're telling me about this late, so I need to go home. My mom is home. My mom is waiting. If this is what you wanted, I'm sure you'd have communicated a bit earlier. That was that. We got back together. Things were looking good until one day I decided to check his phone.
So, what was interesting to me about this part of the story is abusive men and men in general, truly speaking, people know exactly what you want. They know exactly what will make you happy. They know exactly what you desire. Partners, especially, and I'm talking about men here because we're talking about abuse. My primary target audience is women, so like I'm not gonna be talking about women or whatever. Like I'm not gonna be talking about things like I'm talking to a dude. I'm gonna be talking to women. So one thing that's really interesting to me is Bumpy knew exactly what this girl wanted. He knew exactly what Sophia desired. They were broken up. He bumps into her. They bump into each other. And he says, I want to call you to cook for you. This is a motherfucker who wasn't doing none of that when they was together. And when after this they get back together and he still doesn't do none of that. This is a nigga who wasn't even answering calls. So now he wants to cook for you? He cannot press a button to answer your call. But he wants to cook for you. Because he wants you back. Because he wanted her back. And so this is the good face, the pretense face where, they call it flowers and something. Abuse experts sort of call it flowers and something. It's where he's trying to make it good. He's trying to pretend, trying to show you how good it once was, how good it can be, to reel you in. And once you're back, that's the end of it. That's the end of it. This is part of the cycle. And, it's interesting to me how people say, you have to tell men what you want because men can't read your mind, da-da-da. Did she tell him? She didn't. He knew exactly what she wanted. He knew exactly what she would have liked. He knew exactly what it would have taken to get her back. And after this, they get back. They get back together. Men know exactly what you want. They do. To the extent that they're not doing it, it's because they don't give a fuck. It's because they don't want to. But they know. How many times have women talked about this? They want a man who cooks, who cleans, who listens. Like everything women want. A man who's kind and gentle. Everything, and I mean everything, women want from men is in the popular domain. Everyone knows. It's in the, sorry, not popular, public domain. Everyone knows. Everyone knows. Exactly. Everyone knows. To the extent that niggas ain't doing it, it's because they don't give a fuck. They don't care. They don't want to. That's it. That's it.
I have nothing to do with it. Let him decide. As for me, I have to go to work. I went to work. I moved around my day very well. I came back home and she was still home. And me and my hormones, I just wanted to be in my house with my husband. I just entered the house and asked, why are you here? Is what I asked her. Why are you still in my house?
Okay, just to give some background for people who haven't maybe listened to the podcast, there's a girl that they used to have threesomes with. They used to have threesomes with a bunch of many women because Bumpy pressured her into doing it. She didn't enjoy it, not even a little bit, but she did it because that's what you do when you're in an abusive relationship. You're pressured, you're controlled, you're frightened into doing these things, you're manipulated, like you're broken down into doing these things. And so she did them. And so on this day that she's talking about, she left for work, and one of the threesome girls that they threesomed with was in a house, and she wanted the woman gone, but the woman for some reason was still there, I guess because Bumpy wanted her to be there, whatever. She goes to work. She's very upset in the morning when she sees the girl there, and she goes to work, and then she comes back in the evening and the girl is still there. So she's pissed and she confronts and she's like, what you doing here? So alright, that's what's happening so far. Cool.
I have nothing to do with it. Let him decide. As for me, I have to go to work. I went to work. I moved around my day very well. I came back home and she was still home. And me and my hormones, I just wanted to be in my house with my husband. I just entered the house and asked, why are you here? Is what I asked her. Why are you still in my house? Bumpy's like, why are you talking to her like that? I'm like, because she's in my house. She is a guest. She needs to leave. She's like, oh, Bumpy told me to stay. I'm like, I'm the woman of this house and I've told you to leave. I took her clothes, threw them across the living room, and I'm like, leave right now. My kid was around 7. And she's like, I live very far. And I'm like, I don't care. Just leave my house now. Bambi is like, no, it's okay. Let her spend. And then she can leave in the morning. I'm like, you know what? That's what you want. I will go to my mom's house and you will stay here with your guest. And in the morning when she goes, you will tell me, your wife, if you want me back into our house. And he slapped me. And I and the lady all looked at him like he was crazy. This lady just took her clothes and left. And I was like, oh, now you're slapping me in front of another woman because I'm asking the woman who's not your wife to leave. And he's like, yeah, because you and this pregnancy, all you've been doing are things that you want. And I'm like what, for example? Because the only thing I've told you right now is I want the woman gone, but you seem not to want her gone. He slapped me again. And I'm like, okay, I think, Bambi, something's wrong with you in your head because you can clearly see that I have your child in my tummy, right? And I feel like he was in a trance of anger. The moment I said, I'm having your child in my tummy, I'd see him like awaken from something, like he'd shake his head like he's just waking up from a trance. And I asked him, are you okay? He's like, I'm so sorry. At this moment, I don't even want him to touch me.
So, before we continue with that clip, one of the most interesting things, or at least it was really shocking to me. A good chunk of abuse begins when women are pregnant. Like, I couldn't even believe it. You would think that when a woman is pregnant is when, like, the man would pretend to be at least on his best behavior. No. A good chunk of abuse actually starts when the woman is pregnant. And as we all know, obviously, abuse escalates. One of the things that's really interesting to me in terms of utter escalation is men start out by abusing you privately, and then shortly, they don't even care. They're doing it in front of people. So he beats her in front of the house girl, in front of threesome girl. He beats her in front of the house girl. Like, eventually, it's just escalating everywhere. One thing that's interesting to me regarding this instance, she says that when she asked him, she was like, Bumpy, you're beating me. Like, don't you see I'm pregnant? And then it was like he was coming out of a trance or something. And I think that this is some lie and pretense that abusive men use. So to her, it looks like he lost control. Like, he lost control of himself. Oh my God, like, he was in a trance or something. Like, he would have never did that. Like, if he was in control of his full mind and whatever. And then when she called him, like, he got out of it and like, got back to himself. And it's like, that's a lot of bullshit that's been sold to us by abusive men. They're not losing any control. They're not losing any control. Abusive men are in complete control of the motherfucking shit they're doing. I'm gonna play you a clip. Motherfucker. Oh, sorry. I deleted it. But I'm gonna play it for you from TikTok by a woman who's reading from Bancroft about how men do not lose control. How they're in control of exactly what they're doing. Just a minute. Men don't lose control. This Bumpy, he had not lost any control. He knew exactly, and I mean exactly, what he was doing. This is pretense, so that you, I guess, feel a little sorry for him. It's like, oh man, like, he just loses control. He doesn't lose shit. Abusive men know exactly what they're doing. They're in control.
When a client of mine tells me that he became abusive because he lost control of himself, I ask him why he didn't do something even worse. For example, I might say, you called her a effing 304. You grabbed the phone out of her hand and whipped it across the room, and you gave her a shove and she fell down. There she was at your feet, where it would have been so easy to kick her in the head. Now, you just finished telling me that you were totally out of control at the time, but you didn't kick her. What stopped you? The client can always give me a reason. Here are common explanations. I wouldn't want to cause a serious injury. I realized one of the children was watching. I was afraid somebody would call the police. I could her if I did that. The fight was getting loud and I was afraid the neighbors would hear. And the most frequent response of all, Jesus, I wouldn't do that. I would never do something like that to her. The response that I almost never heard, I remember hearing it twice in 15 years, was, I don't know. These ready answers strip the cover off my client's loss of control excuse. When a man is in an abusive rampage, verbally or physically, his mind maintains awareness of a number of questions. Am I doing something that other people could find out about so it can make me look bad? Am I doing anything that could get me in legal trouble? Could I hurt myself? Am I doing anything that I myself consider too cruel, gross, or violent? A critical insight seeped into me from working with my first few dozen clients. An abuser almost never does anything that he himself considers morally unacceptable. He may hide what he does because he thinks other people would disagree with it, but he feels justified inside. I can't remember a client ever having said to me, there's no way I can defend what I did. It was just totally wrong. He invariably has a reason he considers good enough. In short, an abuser's core problem is that he has a distorted sense of right and wrong.
Okay, cool. Important thing, they do not lose control. Abusive men do not lose control. I'm gonna insert a clip, I hope I'll find it, from a domestic violence awareness group that is run by men that found that not only do men not lose control, it's also not like an anger management issue. It's not, because if you call a policeman, if you call police, or if you call like a bigger man while a man is in the process of losing control or losing control of his anger, or he finds his control, he finds that anger management, he develops those skills pretty quick. He really do. So this is some bullshit. It's pretense. It's the way they lie to us. And so the girl looks at it and it's like, oh yeah, like, he won himself. When I tapped him, it's like he was coming back to himself. It's like, nah, he an actor. That's what he is. Best-selling performer, like, Oscar award-winning performer. That's what he is.
I went to the bathroom. I showered. He wants to get into the bathroom with me, and I'm like, don't try me. I go. I oil my belly. I do what I always do. Then I use the laptop. On using the laptop, I open WhatsApp. Like there was an icon there. So I'm just opening it just to check if it was my WhatsApp, because I was also using the laptop prior. And to my surprise, it was his WhatsApp. Still flirting with his baby mama. Still flirting with another woman. And people he used to train when he was employed. And there were a lot of nudes. A lot of thank you for coffee. It was nice spending the night with you. And once I looked at those chats, I was just like, this is the night he told me he had a boys thing. This is the night he said he had Bible study. This is the night he said he had a business trip. All that. All.
That went a bit longer than I expected. I thought it was going to be more. But one of the things that's interesting to me is how he immediately wants to have sex with her. He wants to get into the bathroom with her. He just beat her up. He just slapped her twice, and not just and not just like in hiding it, but like in front of company, in front of a witness. And then he wants to get into the bathroom with her. And one of the things that Bancroft says, and I wish I had that clip, he talks about how abusive men sort of use sex to as a control Z, like an undo button. So once we have sex, it's like none happened, right? Like we're good again. Like that's the purpose of sex for them in a lot of ways. There's a lot of purposes, of course, including like control and that kind of thing. But also they want to have sex almost immediately, so that now it means we're good. Now it means we're good. Everything is in the past. Let me see if I can find that clip. I really wish it did.
Before I take you through the details and subtleties of how abusive men typically approach a range of sexual issues, I want to emphasize the underpinnings of the sexual mentality of many abusers, the foundation that often supports the rest of the structure. 1. It's for him. The abuser's orientation toward sex is likely to be self-involved. Sex to him is primarily about meeting his needs. He may put some effort into creating pleasure for his partner, but probably not because her satisfaction or sharing a mutual experience is important to him. He is invested in having her reach orgasm so that he can see himself as a great lover. He wants to be erotic because he believes that his sexual prowess will enable him to dominate women. Of course, any lover gets some pride out of bringing pleasure to a partner, but to many abusive men, that's the only reason why the woman's satisfaction matters. Everything refers back to him. An abusive man commonly rolls all of his emotional needs into one tremendous bundle, which he expects sex to be able to carry. He tends to have little real heart-to-heart connection with his partner, since a man cannot be truly close to a woman he is abusing. Although a partner may feel very attached to him through traumatic bonding, and he may feel very attached to having her meet his various needs, attachment and closeness are two different things. So he compensates for the lack of genuine intimacy by elevating sex to the highest plane, burdening it with the responsibility of providing for him all the emotional satisfaction that he is not receiving elsewhere in his relationship.
Oh man, I can't find the clip. I'm going to try and find it and insert it there. But the point is, for abusers, we'll come back to that. But for abusers, a large part of sex after conflict is to just, wipe over everything. Now we're good. Like there's nothing else to work out. You had sex with me. Now we're good. And then also, the thing with having an abusive partner is you're sort of always there's all this tension until it breaks, and there's this cycle, and it has a lot of tension in it as we move from the good, where he's like being good to you, buttering you up, and then tension rising, and then he beats you up or whatever, and then you come back to like a good part, and then from the good part, tension rising until it explodes, until he beats you up. And so part of what sex does is, because that cycle sort of draws you apart, it messes with your closeness, at least on the woman's end. It messes with your sense of intimacy on the woman's end, and so you just want it to end. You want it to end. You want to feel close to your partner. You want to feel bonded or whatever. You want the good times to come back again. And so that's what sex also does. It's like the good times. It's used to I guess, trap you in a way, because this is the only time that you're this close to each other. It's the only time you have this, I guess, intimate bond, and there's all these hormones, and you're feeling good potentially, and you want that. And so an abusive man will use that against you, will use sex to keep you hooked. All right, cool. Let's see something again.
Your phone, I want to address everybody. I'll send them messages. He threw that phone across and it hit me straight on my forehead. And I was like, oh, so you're still hitting me and hitting now me with things interesting. I was like, I laughed and I told him, you know what? Continue with your women. Actually, it seems you're happier when there are very many women. That's where you prosper. And he was like, okay. He seems he wants to talk about it. I did not want to talk about it at that specific time. So what he did instead, he pulled me by my locks, dragged me from the bedroom, across the floor, till the sitting room, and put me on the chair. And I'm like, I said I don't want to talk about it now. You also tell me when you don't want to talk about things, I should understand. Here you are pulling my hair. For what reason? I won't talk about it right now. I value my marriage. I'm like, it doesn't seem like that on text, but I don't want to talk about it right now. He hits me. He strangles me at this point, and I can tell him, Bumpy, I cannot breathe. So I managed to kick his chest with my foot, and he fell.
It was difficult to hear that. Just how abuse escalates. So it starts with a slap, and then shortly he's slapping you multiple times. Next he's throwing things at you. Next he's dragging you by your hair. Abuse escalates. The cycle can make you think that it won't, especially in the beginning when he apologizes and it's flowers and cooking for you and being really sweet and gentle until you're like, oh, okay, so he must have just like lost his temper, he must have lost control, like this is who he is. He's this version of him that cooks and buys me flowers and is kind. And it's manipulation, it's a lie, it's tricks, it's smokes and mirrors. Because what abuse would always do is escalate. And here it is, escalating. He's dragging her by her hair.
I didn't care about him, what he did, what he wanted. I just follow what he said. I was like, we're going to the market. I'm like, okay, let's go. We're doing this. Okay, let's go. I was there. I never questioned. I never did anything. So Bumpy was worried. So Bumpy called this lady, and this lady started talking to me. So instead of calling me on phone, what she did is she came home. Bumpy was not home, but she was. So I asked her, why are you home? She's like, Bumpy told me you're not okay. So I'm here to figure out why. I'm like, one, you're the reason number one among the reasons we're not okay. Came to our house, you are touchy with my husband after I specifically told you something. You didn't have the courtesy to come ask me if that's how it is. You just took Bumpy's side and went with it. And she says, in my defense, Bumpy is the man. I was like, okay. And she's like, but that was then. Now I'm here for you. I want to listen to you. And I told her, actually,
I'm sorry. I'm in a bit of a. What was informing this structure? There was something behind it. Like, this is the man. You have to follow this. If you're saying you did not grow up seeing this,
the structure was, and this is something Bumpy threw around in any situation, was you're raised by a single mom. You wouldn't know how households run. You wouldn't know anything about submission. And since honestly and genuinely I did not know, because I was raised by a single mom, I did not see her submit to somebody, especially at an older age, to see how submission goes. I'd believe it. And he would always say, but I know submission, I know the role of a man, because he has both parents. So I was just like, okay, that makes sense.
I really do wonder about that, because I don't want to come off. I know there's people who actually live by that, where the man says the final word.
Yeah, so Jules goes on to say that, she understands people who have that arrangement, but like that's not her thing. Bumpy's the man. The woman stays in her house. And when Sophia asks her, like, dude, what's up? She says, Bumpy is the man, and he told me to stay. I think that I think that one of the things people can and should do, and especially women, like, I don't give a fuck about niggas, but especially women, one of the things women can and must do, I think, as a matter of agency, is divorce themselves from this gender binary, from this logic of living under these gender constructs. So, and this is one of the reasons why I absolutely love the trans community and the whole trans movement, just all of them. I love it. I love what they're doing. They're saying, this is some made up shit and we're not going to live in that box with you. Like, I'm not none of that. Like, the gender queer, what do we call they thems? They thems are like my favorite. I love they thems more than, like, trans people are good. They're cool. They're really cool. But like they thems are my favorite. They're my favorite. Like, oof, they thems are my favorite. Cause they're just like, yeah, listen, I don't care about how I look on the outside. I might just do what I want. Like, I'm not gonna live in those boxes that you people have. Like, if you, like, because the outside of my body looks like this. Like, so now I'm gonna have to do my hair like this, or I'm gonna have to talk like this, or like submit to the authority of somebody because they have a penis. Like, what's this bullshit? What is this bullshit? Bumpy is the man? Why? Like, because he has a penis, we do what he wants? You know, that's stupid, right? Like, and I'm not calling them stupid. Like, I'm not calling those girls stupid. I'm saying it's a stupid way for society to be organized, that somebody gets something or deserves certain power and authority just because they have, like, a penis or a certain color of skin. Like, that is so fucking dumb. It's stupid. It's a stupid way to organize anything. And so, you know, I love the they thems. I love, you know, trans people, because they're just like, nah, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. I love I love that they're just messing up these things that we have taken for granted. Like, you're born and you grow up in this society, and it's like, okay, somebody has to be male or female, boy or girl, and they're just like, yeah, no, nah, not gonna do that. I love it. I love it because, especially because we think it's self-evident, right? So they're saying even that thing that you think is just self-evident, like, obviously anybody can see with their eyes. No. We're saying you could be wrong about that. And it's like an opportunity for all of us to just reconsider all of these things that we take for granted to be true just because we were told, or just because they look a certain way. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. The important thing is, the woman says, because Bumpy is the man. It's so fucking stupid. The way that we have organized the society, and the way that we raise children, and just the way we socialize everybody. It's so fucking dumb. What is that? Because he's the man? Like, what did he do? You know, carve out that penis on his own? He didn't do nothing to get the penis. He was just born with it. So, like, how does that give him any special authority? Like, what? I can't with the way we run things here. It's so fucking dumb. And then he says to her, and apparently he said it to her a lot, that because she was raised by a single mom, she doesn't know that the role of a man. And this is where, oh, sorry, I bumped into shit. And this is where, like, I'm gonna start being, I don't know, problematic, controversial, potentially. I do not think, and I mean it, I do not think that children need fathers in the home, that they need men in the home. I really don't, and I mean it. I mean 100%. Like, it's not even no doubt, like, no exaggeration, no doubt in my head. I mean it. Children do not need men in the house. They do not. They do not. Children need adults who care for them, who will protect them, who will provide for them, who will lead them and guide them, and give them room and space to grow and be. and figure themselves out and be happy and guide them. That's what children need. They need loving, caring adults who will guide and teach them and give them room to grow and be children. That's what they need. That's what they need. And if somebody is not bringing that, if that's not your contribution, you do not need to be anywhere near kids. You do not need to be anywhere near children just because you have a penis and you donated the gametes. Like, let's be serious, no. So anyway, he tells her how she was raised by a single mother. We'll talk about this when we come to Njeri Migwi, but she also got that a lot in her relationship. It was like, listen, you was raised by a single mother, so like you don't even know how shit needs to be going, how this, family setup needs to be, and so you believe that person. And the truth is, if men cared at all about being intimate with women and having, healthy relationships, what we would be talking about is what a marital relationship needs, is what any other relationship needs. It is, kindness. It needs, care and consent for each other. That's what it needs. That's what it needs. Mutual respect. That's what it needs. But somehow this specific relationship has to have this hierarchy where one person has to submit to the other. I'm going to tell you after the next clip when I stopped believing in, not when I stopped believing in submission, but like the very last day when I was like, I don't ever want to hear the word submission. I do not ever want to hear it. Let me see if I can find that Njeri clip where she kept being told she came from a single parent home and so she didn't even know how shit needs to run. Man, I can't find it. However, she also had that. She was told that she came from a single parent home and so she didn't know how things need to be organized. But the truth is, I would much rather any day, grow up with a parent like Njeri Migwi's dad than in a home where there's this ranking order of human beings. Because what did Njeri Migwi learn in her home, right? Her dad would cook, he would clean, he would do anything that required to be done because he was the only adult in the home. And so there was no gender roles. There were no gender roles at all. And this needing to see how it works, how a man should be, in the leadership authority role, whatever. This imagination in our heads that we need to see that at work, that's what leads us astray. Children would be much better off any day, growing up in a home where they didn't see this order, this structure, this is how, the role of a man in a home, this is how a woman submits, whatever. Children would fare much better if they grew up in households that were equitable, that were equal, where adults did what needed to be done because they were adults, where people contributed because they were members of that little community, they were members of that household, not because of gender, not because of none of that. Children do not need to see women being forced to submit. They do not need to see this structure where men call all the shots. They do not, who does it benefit? How does it help kids? Oh, God. Anyway, so I'm gonna play another clip. Let's see.
If you're saying you did not grow up seeing this,
the structure was, and this is something Bumpy threw around in any situation, was you're raised by a single mom. You wouldn't know how households run. You wouldn't know anything about submission. And since honestly and genuinely I did not know, because I was raised by a single mom, I did not see her submit to somebody, especially at an older age, to see how submission goes, I'd believe it. And he would always say, but I know submission, I know the role of a man, because he has both parents. So I was just like, okay, that makes sense.
I really do wonder about that, because I don't want to come off, I know there's people who actually live by that, where the man says the final word.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if it's right. I don't think you should always be fighting with your partner if that's the agreement you've come into. But at what point does the woman have a little bit of a say?
At that time, I did not know when the woman had the say, because according to him, who knows how submission works and how a household runs, he always said that the man has the final say. And since I always wanted to show that I'm a submissive woman and a woman who wants to be an added piece of value to him, I'd stick with that.
Did you not have any friends to talk to about what was going on in your marriage, in your family life, in your relationship?
I did. Funny thing is, yes, I did. I never said those dark parts. Why? Because Bumpy and Bumpy's mom always told me that marriage stuff are never told to anybody else other than the household you're in. So according to Bumpy's mom, it was, if you're not able to solve it with Bumpy, come tell me. So I tell her, yes. So I've told Bumpy's mom. Bumpy's mom is like, oh, you're the one with the temper. Reduce your temper. So I'd always fit into that. So if I know I have a temper, instead of speaking when angry, I'd speak the following day. If I always want to nudge something, instead of always asking, I'd just wait until it's an appropriate time and ask Bumpy.
I think those are admirable traits, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think you should not speak when you're in a heightened state, and it's always good to kind of take some time before you retort. But there's some dysfunction there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's what I always did. So every time he'd hit me, I'd go back and maybe say, I'm the reason. Why? Bumpy says I'm the reason. Bumpy's mom also says I added to the reason why Bumpy was hitting me. So I'd always try and find out why. And I came to understand when Bumpy said you're not being peaceful, it's because I found out he was cheating. In his head, I was not supposed to find out, but I found.
So, two interesting things here. And this is why the stories that these women tell are so fucking powerful, and why we should just be in eternal gratitude to them. The way many of us have been socialized is keep family business in the family. You don't tell family business out there. You don't do that. If you have an issue, if there's a problem, you come to us, right? You do not tell anybody out there. You don't even tell your friends. And this kind of setup, the only person it benefits is the abuser. Well, and his family, because maybe they don't want to look bad. And they don't want to, I guess, have maybe those kinds of stories circulating about them. Anyway, the only person it benefits is the abuser. And the victim just remains caught up in that. Because once you tell one person, and she saw it even with a friend, once you tell one person, they reinforce to you that secret thing that you believe that's sort of being pushed down and beaten out of you by the abuser. The understanding, the realization that it's not you. Maybe something terrible is being done to you. The thing with abusers and their families is, just like Bumpy's family, so they sort of try to split blame. Part of it is you, part of it is him. And all these things, and you start to believe it. But then when you tell just one person, they're like, no, something terrible is being done to you, not by you, to you. And that affirms that secret thing, that secret truth that that it's currently being really pushed down, being beaten out of you, being, manipulated out of you, but it's there. A tiny kernel of that truth is in you. And when you tell someone else and they affirm it, you can do something with it, including leaving, including, seeking help, something. And the reason they don't want you to tell is because they want to keep you there. They want, particularly the abuser, he wants to keep you in his control. And he knows. As soon as people start to know, his control over you starts to crumble. One interesting thing is how abusers always have this support system around them. Victims are often very isolated and lonely, and they're just by themselves. All they have is them. Abusers control everything until all you have is just you. And then also, many people are not comfortable with lying. And so, if you're a victim and you realize all you're doing is just lying to people, you start to pull away because you can't tell them the truth. And meanwhile, the abuser just has a team of people around him at all times, helping him bury bodies, helping him, destroy your sense of belief in your own intuition, in your own analysis of what's happening. They just have people. And it's so unfortunate how mothers of boys, TM, and men-centered, male-centered women sort of just help abusers just get away with these things. Bumpy's mom knows exactly what's going on. She knows exactly what's going on. And she's like, you know what? You don't even you have a temper. What? Anyway, it's very sad how our society is just structured to aid and abet and support abusers. Everything works together to help and support them. And, we'll see later on, even when she goes to the police, the whole system, the entire system, functions to support the abuser and to make the victim feel like worse, essentially. Another thing that's interesting is how, self-blame starts to creep in. His mother says it's her fault. Bumpy says it's her fault. And even if you know somewhere deep down that it's not your fault, you start to believe it. Long after I left the church, this is like maybe 2 years ago? No, I didn't leave the church 2 years ago, many years ago. But it was like last year, but when I I saw that Njeri Migwi interview, I'm not sure which one it was, I think it's the one she did with Lynn Gogi, and because I watched the one she did with Lynn Gogi and the one she did with Kalecha Momo, I think it's the one she did with Lynn Gogi, and she talks about how faith comes by hearing. Faith comes by hearing, and if everyone around you is telling you it's your fault, you're going to believe it's your fault. You're going to believe it's something you're doing. And so that's why you have women talking, searching and reading books and, thinking about reading about, listening to podcasts about how to best talk to your man, how to, communicate so that he doesn't feel emasculated or attacked or whatever the bullshit. Like, it's you. You need to fix something about you. You need to fix how you talk to him. You need to fix your anger. You need to fix something about you. Self-blame. Faith comes by hearing. I think that we as a society can be very mean to victims because, you listen to the story and I've heard people say, they're like, why didn't she leave? Like, this is so crazy. Why did she put up with all this? And even she, at some point, I think it's her because I listened to all the stories. So I'm not sure. I hope I'm not mixing them up. But I think that even she at one point is like, what am I doing? Right? So as a society, we like this idea of self-blame. We like this idea of sharing responsibility. Part of it is you, part of it is him. And we just, it's very sad. It's very sad. Especially in her case. Every time I think about the fact that she was 20 years old at this point, it breaks my heart. And people are telling her, all the, I guess we could say adults around her, are telling her it's her. Baby, it wasn't you. It's not you at all. There's a part where Bancroft talks about how women do not deserve abuse. In fact, they deserve to be free of abuse, even if they're not perfect. Even if they're not perfect. Like, you do not need to be a good woman who has her whole life together or whatever to deserve to not be abused. Let me see if I can get it. Oh my God, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Damn it. Oh no. Just a minute. Okay, there.
And 3, he was failing to accept the reality that a woman does not have to be all good in order to have the right to live free of abuse.
Let's hear that again.
He was failing to accept the reality that a woman does not have to be all good in order to have the right to live free of abuse.
That's it. A woman does not have to be all good to have the right to live a life free of abuse. All the stories, right? All the stories. When I saw June's story, we'll get to it. She said even her, in telling her story, she was like, yeah, I didn't mean to call pistol. Like, like part of explaining why it happened to her. And I'm like, what? No. You do not have to be all good. You do not have to have your temper under control. You do not have to have advanced communication skills so he never feels emasculated and he never feels hurt or whatever. A woman does not need to be all good to deserve to have a life free of abuse. Abuse is always a decision that the abuser is making. It's always that they could have left. If he thinks you're so disrespectful or you have such a terrible temper or, I don't know, whatever else other reasons, if he thinks that's you, he should have left. He could have left. That was an option. He didn't choose to live though. He chose to abuse you, and that's a choice he made that has nothing to do with you. Please, abuse is not something that we can shout blame. Oh, kuna mdomo pistol. Oh, nakuanga na temper. Oh, tunajuanga vile unaongea. Like, fuck that. Abuse is a choice the man makes. It's a choice the abuser makes at all times. It's not you. Listen to that tiny voice that hasn't been killed by this nigga. That's telling you it's not you. In closing, I just want to add about this nuclear family thing where you need to see submission at work and where you need to see a man being in authority, whatever, so that you can learn to do it. I think in that sense, possibly people who grew up in single parent homes, single mother homes have it really good, because then you don't have to see that. You grow up like Njeri Migwi, where you don't have any concept of gender roles. It's like just this is how people contribute. I once read somewhere, it was Bancroft. There's a part where he talks about how abusive men learn it in the home. They see it with their dad. That's the first place they see it. This whole control thing, and then they're like, oh, okay, so that's the man's position. All of society is working to teach men this thing, and then they also see it at home. The first place they see it is at home. And for that reason, I actually think it's better for children to not grow up with a man in the house. I really do. I think it's better for them to, and unless that man is like committed to egalitarian principles and committed to and learning patriarchy and leaving behind all of that privilege, all of that power that he gets from it, unless he's committed to just living it. And essentially, I guess, this doesn't exactly, it's not exactly translating to one, but essentially become a woman in that household. Like, live in this household as a woman, right? Like, whatever it is a woman's position, that subordinate position, assume that. And I'm not saying that the woman assumes the position of authority. I don't think anybody should be assuming the position of authority and control. But I'm saying it should be like two women are living in that house. So now what? Right? Live in that house like two women. And then I would understand having a man in the house. But like a man who's coming here with like, ooh, this is a man's position, fuck you. And fuck that. Children are better off without that. I often think that part of the reason we gravitate towards all of these authoritarian leaders, and like Donald Trump was just inaugurated yesterday. The reason we gravitate towards this type of authoritarian leaders is because we know that, right? Like, we know that. And some people think it's safe because it takes you back to your childhood. Your dad was the man and he was in control and he was in charge, and things were good. Like, you were a kid and somebody was taking care of you, like things were good. And so, you know that. you are accustomed to this kind of abuse. And so you vote for Ruto, and you want to vote for Matiang'i, and now you vote for Donald Trump, and anyway.
It hit me, I'd go back and maybe say I'm the reason. Why? Bumpy says I'm the reason. Bumpy's mom also says I added to the reason why Bumpy was hitting me. So I'd always try and find out why. And I came to understand when Bumpy said you're not being peaceful, it's because I found out he was cheating. In his head, I was not supposed to find out, but I found out. So finding out, questioning him, wanting answers, wanting accountability and all that, to him was not being peaceful. But that I found out later on. So this lady has come home, and believe it or not, Jules, I specifically told this lady, Bumpy says he wants somebody to be intimate with at this moment that I'm not. Let it be. She's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. You're always here. You're always talking to Bumpy. Why not?
This is what you told her?
Yeah. Because now for me, what I was thinking is if I gave Bumpy one specific constant person, the rest of the women would go. And I'd be able to control this woman. So in one way or another, I had the upper hand. I did, in fact, did not have an upper hand.
I love how she closes that. Because she's like, okay, if I give him permission to sleep with this one woman, then at least I know what he's doing and I have the upper hand. Like I have some level of control in the situation. And she ends it by saying, in fact, I did not. She did not have the upper hand. She did not have any control. One interesting thing that you come to learn that I have come to learn about abuse and abusive relationship and abusers is you can never have control. He has control. The way the relationship works for him and for it to work for him is he has control. And so you can feel like you have some control, but you don't have any. And I feel like abusive relationships are like, this is gonna sound bad, and I'm not. Yeah, anyway, I feel like abusive relationships are the logical conclusion of what relationships are supposed to look like under patriarchy. Like, they're exactly what relationships are supposed to be like under patriarchy. The man has control, power, authority, like, it's him. He runs shit. And to the extent that a relationship is not abusive, I feel like that's what's strange. Especially for heterosexual relationships. To me, that feels like the strange thing. Because this is peak heterosexual relationship under patriarchy. Anyway, you can't have any control. It's gonna sound bad. Women have little control in heterosexual relationships. I think little control. They may think they do, but in most heterosexual relationships under the patriarchy, especially where the man sort of still believes the man is the head of the home and other bullshit like that, women have little control. They have the illusion of control. That's why the whole bullshit like, the man is the head and you're the neck, like, oh my god. Anyway, you are not going to have control in a relationship with an abusive man. You're going to have little control in a heterosexual relationship that hasn't deconstructed patriarchy. It's just what it is, and it's very unfortunate. It's what it is. One of the things, this is slightly unrelated, but maybe slightly related. Bancroft. Bancroft talks about the differences between the way abusers from different ethnic groups behave. And he says, so for example, black women are more likely to fight back. And here we're talking about statistics in the US. Black women are more likely than anybody to fight back. And so to them, if you're as victims, it feels like they're giving back at what they're getting. They're giving back at least as much as they're getting, and it's not like it gives them this like sense that they have some control too. And Bancroft says no. If you really think about it, and if you really look at them, they're still the victims. The men are not living in fear and terror of them. the women are not controlling everything the men get to do. And, even the level of violence, it's not the same. It's not the same. So it may feel to you like you're giving back as much as you get in, but the only person here being abused, being controlled, living in fear is you. It's just you. Okay.
So the baby came. She's been there 3 weeks. The baby has come.
What do you mean, living there?
She's been with us every single day.
Does she live there? Do you understand my question?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand what is this I'm listening to.
At this time, if she's cooking, I'm too pregnant to even stand on my feet. So I didn't mind. I didn't think about it. And then the funny thing is, she was there to satisfy Bumpy's sexual needs, but they were never, ever sexual in the 3 weeks that she was there until my delivery. Not a single day, because I was in the house all through, because I've taken maternity leave. So I'm there, I'm going nowhere. I'm swollen, I'm there. She was never intimate with him. But the thing is, she complained. She complained to me. She's like, why is Bumpy, even if I try, he'd always turn me down? And I'm like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And it's not my place to talk to him. But I'd ask, do you want me to talk to him? And she's like, yeah. So I go back with a complaint I've been given by this woman to Bumpy. And Bumpy's like, no, I don't think I'm ready. But once I am, I know she's there. So I'm like, okay. So I asked Bumpy, you said you'd want someone. The someone is here. And you seem comfortable having her around. What do you want? She's like, no, since you're very much not able to do everything around the house, how about right now she just helps around? And I went back to this woman and told her exactly what Bumpy told me. And asked her, is that something you're okay with? And she's like, yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back. Let's pause over there and we'll come back shortly. One of the things that's interesting to me is how somehow his sexual needs are her problem. Like, she's responsible for his sexual satisfaction. One of the things Bumpy told her when she got to the 3rd trimester, and she was like, she didn't feel like she could do it. Like, she felt some kind of way about having sex. And Bumpy says to her, yeah, I'm gonna have to have sex with somebody. So, or I will cheat. Like, you're gonna have to hook it up. And so she hooks it up. Tells this girl to come and have sex with Bumpy. Society just really does a number on us. It really just does a number on us. Women are socialized to believe that men's satisfaction, sexually and otherwise, is their responsibility. It's your wifely duties. Like, you literally owe him this shit. It's your duty. And that's why this is happening. This is the logical conclusion of believing that it's your duty, that it's your responsibility to make sure that he's sexually satisfied. So now you're heavily pregnant and you're working as some kind of go-between between your husband's live-in mistress and your husband. This is the logical conclusion of believing that his sexual needs are your responsibility. They're not. They're not. They're not. They're not. You do not owe anybody sex. Right? It's this kind of thinking that leads to marital rape. Right? This idea that it's your duty, that you owe him. You don't owe anybody sex. You don't. You don't. You do not. It's not your responsibility. So anyway, I'm going to play a clip by Bancroft where he talks about how abusers, one of the other ways abusers pursue sex and perceive sex, and how she feels like she owes him sex, or exists, I guess, to meet his sexual needs.
2. She owes him sex. My clients commonly believe that a woman gives up her right to decline sex once she becomes seriously involved with a man. It's her responsibility to have sex with him to make him feel loved, to meet his sexual needs, or simply because that's her job.
So the reason, The reason Sophia is being sent to talk to Bumpy about this is because, apart from the fact that she apparently is the one who owes him sex, and is in charge of making sure you're sexually pleased. He has been withholding sex from this new girl, and so she's supposed to mediate or whatever. Let's finish listening, and then I'm gonna play a clip about withholding sex in this context, with an abuser, right? With an abuser. Otherwise, withholding sex does not exist outside of abuse. Okay, cool. Because nobody owes you sex.
So that's the dynamic. That's what we had. So she'd come, go home to her house as she pleases. She'd stay over as long as she pleases. And even on the day that I went to hospital, not to deliver, she also was there.
But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that Bumpy was not having sex with this woman. She'd been brought in specifically to have sex with him. But he wasn't having sex with her. And then later on, we find out that he'd made her promise that she wasn't going to be having sex with anybody else. And so she's here, I guess, oh my God, in sexual limbo because she's not having sex with Bumpy.
Good. So ask Bumpy on our way back. When are we starting action again? It's like, the doc has just released you. Just give it time. I also feel like you're very delicate. So let me understand you a little bit. And I was like, okay, makes sense. This whole time, this other lady is also still complaining they're not intimate. It's been now almost a month and a half. She's been home, no intimacy. And Bumpy made her vow her faithfulness to Bumpy.
This is so bizarre.
So this lady cannot get sex anywhere else except from Bumpy. And Bumpy is not giving her sex. So she's wondering, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? And she didn't mind because she'd help around the child with my daughter. I never had to move. If my daughter cried and she was in the crib, she'd wake up, give me the child. My thermos was filled with uji, water, food, everything.
Was Bumpy and you catering to her financial needs as well?
No.
Did she have a job?
Yes, she worked online, so she'd work there, finish work, all that. She did everything in our household, especially after my daughter came. Everything.
Was she also around your age? Or older? Or more towards Bumpy's age?
No, a bit older than me, 2-3 years older than I am. So I never, at that point, as a new mom.
Okay, so here we have Bumpy's not having sex with Sophia. She's just given birth. She's gone for, I think it's a 3-month checkup or whatever, and she's been told it's okay, she can have sex. She asks him, he says no. He's like, nah, let's give it time. I want to get to know you better, whatever. Something that's supposed to sound good to her, and it does sound good to her, so she's like, yeah. He's also not having sex with this woman who was brought in specifically to have sex with him. This is abusers using sex to control, using withholding sex in this specific sense, and only in this specific sense can he use withholding sex, because he's told her, and now we're talking about threesome girl, he's told that she can't have sex with anybody else. She's promised to not have sex with anybody else but him, but he's not having sex with her. He's also not having sex with Sophia, who's expressed an interest in having sex. Alright, cool. Let's see how abusers use sex as a control tactic.
He may be punishing you for some way you have challenged him, or for times when you have not felt like having sex with him. It is common for abusive men to withhold sex as a control tactic. If he is indeed having an affair, his energy for sex at home is bound to be siphoned off some.
It is common for abusers to use sex as a control tactic. That's all I'm gonna say. Because why would you make somebody promise to not have sex with anybody else? And she's not your partner, she's not your wife, she's not none of that, right? And you're not having sex with him. He's also not having sex with this girl. And we know this is a nigga obsessed with sex. Okay. Alright.
Wishes that she was the wife because she seems more understanding. How I don't want even to be intimate with him and it's bothering him.
Oh, pause. I need us to talk about how she keeps saying intimate when she means sex. She says Bumpy and that girl are not being intimate. She says she and Bumpy are not being intimate. What you're not doing is having sex. What Bumpy and that girl are not doing is having sex. It has nothing to do with intimacy. Oh, I'm gonna be back. Pause. Hey, welcome back. If you're new here, this is the Actor Lunacy podcast where I mostly discuss African movies and TV shows. However, I'm taking a bit of a detour, and for this episode, I'm going to be talking about the way we talk about abuse, the way we tell the stories of abuse. And here I'm speaking specifically about how victims and survivors talk about abuse. I'll be using 3 stories. June's story that was on Lynn Ngugi's show. I'll be using Njeri Migwi's story as told to Kalechi Momo and also somebody else, Lynn Ngugi. Sorry. And then I'll begin with Sophia and Bumpy's story because that's the most recent one and it's the one that's really fresh in people's minds. As I said in the first part, this is actually part 2. So if you haven't listened to part 1, possibly and you'd want to maybe go and listen to it. Otherwise, you don't really need to because I'll be speaking about it as I go along. So it's cool. You don't have to go and listen to it if you're not feeling it. As I said in part 1, I would hate for it to look like I'm trying to speak over victims and survivors or act like my view of it is what's of consequence and that their perception of what happened was wrong. I would hate for it to look like that. All I'm curious about is the similarities in the ways victims tell their stories. So what are the themes that keep recurring? And I think that it would help us understand the way we've been socialized to view abuse, the way we've been socialized to view gender, the way we've been socialized to see all these things, the questions we keep asking when victims and survivors come out and tell us their stories. I'm just curious about the way we interact with it. So from the part of the victims and survivors, the stories they're telling, the way they frame the stories, and the way we also respond to the questions, for example, that the interviewers ask in return and that kind of thing. So that's what this is. I truly respect and honor, and I would just like to express my sincere gratitude to these women who come out and they share with us these stories that we have been taught to perceive as shameful, that possibly lead people to view them, to have this negative opinion of them, and to have this low opinion of them essentially, and just the courage to come out and share their stories. These stories are changing women's lives. They're saving women's lives, and it's not even an exaggeration at all. When we see the stories, we begin to see how common they are, how it's not each individual woman's fault. It's not about choosing better. When 1 in 3, at the very least, when 1 in 3 women are repeating and sharing their stories, then the problem is not the women are choosing poorly. All right, so to be very clear, that's what this is. I absolutely respect and appreciate what these women are doing. I honor them. I celebrate their bravery and their courage. I would just like us, the rest of us, all of us together, to examine the way these stories are being told and what it says about our society, what it says about what we value, what it says about what we're willing to face about what's happening in our society. So, yeah. Secondly, as part of the disclaimer, I have not experienced any of what these women are talking about, and I'm not saying that as a point of pride. As a woman, if you haven't experienced serious male abuse, it's pure luck. It's pure luck. We live in an extremely abusive society, and in a lot of ways, patriarchy sort of situates the right to abuse and the power to get away with it in men. So, yeah, while I haven't experienced it, I am somebody who's extremely curious about abuse and extremely curious about gender relations. So I read a lot. I read a whole lot about abuse. I am the kind of person who reads academic papers about abuse. I have read Why Does He Do That by Bancroft cover to cover. I have made a summary video on YouTube of part 1, sort of taking you step by step through what he says. I'm currently reading Coercive Control by Evan Stark. So yeah, that's possibly what you should know going in. I'm not an expert. I am not a victim or a survivor, but I'm a person who is curious, who's completely, like, insatiably curious about the way we talk about these things. I think that examining the way we look at them can really help us to begin to change things, I think. All right, cool. Let's pick up where we left off. I'm gonna play the clip and then I'll come back and talk about that.
Good. So ask Bumpy on our way back. When are we starting action again? It's like, the drug has just released you. Just give it time. Give it time. I also feel like you're very delicate. So let me understand you a little bit. And I was like, okay, makes sense. This whole time, this other lady is also still complaining they're not intimate. It's been now almost a month and a half. She's been home, no intimacy. And Bumpy made her vow her faithfulness to Bumpy.
This is so bizarre.
So this lady cannot get sex anywhere else except from Bumpy. And Bumpy is not giving her sex. So she's wondering, okay, what am I supposed to be doing?
Okay, so up to there. I wanted to talk about how she describes Bumpy and that woman's sexual relationship. She says that woman was complaining that she and Bumpy were not being intimate. And she talks about herself, Sophia, and how after she came from the hospital, she was like, yeah, when are we going to resume relations? And she keeps interchanging sex and intimacy. And we do this a lot, and I don't know what it is. I think as a society, we're not very comfortable talking about sex. And so we're always using these euphemisms and that kind of thing. And in this case, I actually agree with people who say interchanging between sex and intimacy is actually very harmful because they're not synonyms. They're not the same thing. Sex is a purely physical act that doesn't require any kind of emotional connection. Intimacy, by definition, demands emotional connection, and interchanging between intimacy and sex cheapens what intimacy is. Bumpy is not intimate with anybody. He's in the streets, he's fucking everybody, he's having sex with everybody, but he is not intimate with anybody. It's not possible to be intimate with people you're using. It's not possible to be intimate with people you're controlling. It's not possible to be intimate with people you're controlling. You can't abuse or control somebody and be intimate with them. Bumpy is abusing Sophia in all kinds of ways, emotionally, physically. Like, he's abusing her. He's doing the whole thing on her. He's abusing this other woman, I think sexually, because he's controlling her. She doesn't get to have sex with other people, but he can have sex with other people. That's control. And at the root of all abuse is control. So, yeah, sex and intimacy are not synonyms. They're not synonymous at all. And to use those terms interchangeably is to cheapen intimacy. Bumpy is not intimate with anybody. Abusive people are not intimate with anybody. Intimacy is special. Intimacy is incredibly special, and we need to preserve that. I guess we need to just use words appropriately. This hiding behind euphemisms because we're afraid to talk about sex or whatever it is. No, I also think that part of why people do it, I think, sort of interchanging sex and intimacy, is like we always want sex to be intimate, right? And it's not always. Yeah, definitely in the case of Bumpy, it's not intimate. In the case of something like sex work, it's not intimate. It's just a purely physical act. And, well, I think part of it comes just from this desire to moralize everything. So sex has to be intimate, but not quite. Like, it would be good. I think it would be good in any kind of decent society that's healthy and like where people's needs are met. Sex would always be intimate, right? But that's not the society we're in, and so sex isn't always intimate, and to deceive ourselves, to program ourselves to perceive sex as always intimate. And I think this is especially true for people, I think, in abusive relationships, because this feels like the only time where you approximate something close to closeness and intimacy, right? And so you want to call sex intimacy, but it's not. Right.
Wishes that she was the wife because she seems more understanding. How I don't want even to be intimate with him and it's bothering him. How I'm nagging him and all. He had a lot of complaints. So I read them and every switch now in me started going off one by one. I was like, okay, emotionally disconnected, physically disconnected, anything. I was just going disconnected. So one day he wanted to be intimate with me and I told him I don't want. He got very, very mad. He pinned me on the wall. His hand is on my neck and he got intimate with me with like in that specific position.
Oh my God.
I just left, went showered and just moved on.
You mean he raped you?
Yeah, that's the word, right?
There's so much to unpack in this brief clip. I think that one of the things that really stands out for me is the way she says, yeah, that's what you call it, right? Like, whoa, that yeah, it's so...
Yeah, that's the word, right?
It's so heartbreaking. Like, it's so much. And it's so... I hate it. So... the other thing that I would like to talk about is the position in which he does it, right? So he pins her down and he has his hand around her neck. I once read a few years ago when I was working as a writer, I was researching the impact of pornography on people's sex lives, essentially. And one of the things that I was shocked to find out is the number of deaths related to choking in the UK that are related to sex, so aggressive sex, and so where somebody's choking you out. And I was like, my God, that was a difficult one. And then finding out that young people, so people who are coming up in this internet age, sort of submit to that kind of sex from their partners, from their boyfriends, essentially. Young women submit to that kind of sex from their boyfriends because that's what's normal. They think that's what's normal because that's what they see in pornography. A guy is always choking at a woman. Like, they always have their hands at some point around a woman's neck. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I can play us a clip by Bancroft about how abusers pursue sex. He talks about how it's really, for abusers, sex is about control. Like everything else that abusers do, it's about control. It's about manipulation. Let me just see if I can get that clip. I hope I find it.
But there is also the other extreme. I have had clients whose only interest in sex was for domination and degradation. For the woman, being in bed with this style of abuser can be a nightmare. He wants sex when he wants it, the way he likes it, and with little attention to how she may feel or what her needs might be. Sexual episodes with him may feel like sexual assaults to her. As the partner of one of my clients said to me, I don't even want to go into it. It's just ugly. The sexually abusive man won't necessarily rape his partner in the literal sense of using physical force or threats of harm, though some do. Instead, he may insult her when she declines his advances, calling her names like frigid or lesbian, or snarl accusingly, you must be getting it somewhere else since you never want to make it with me anymore. He may make her feel guilty about his sexual frustration, tell her that he feels like she doesn't love him anymore, or say that a man must have his needs met. He may threaten infidelity. Well, if you won't have sex with me, I can find plenty of women who will. And he may carry that threat out. Many clients of mine have used affairs to punish their partners. A woman named Cynthia recounted how her partner coerced her by using relentlessness, If I don't want to have sex with Ernie, he just goes on, and he won't stop until I change my mind. He'll beg me. Then he'll get crude and say I'm fucking someone else. Then it's nonstop insults. If I go to sleep, he wakes me up. Some nights I'm just exhausted after a while. So what do I do? Usually I finally give in. I can't stand to go through it. It ends up being better to just get it over with, even though it's awful. Because then at least he lets me sleep. When people think about forced sex, they picture physical assault. So when an abuser forces sex through pressure or manipulation or sleep deprivation, a woman doesn't know what to call it and may blame herself. Dozens of partners of my clients, including Cynthia, have said, "It's my own fault. I shouldn't give in to him." A woman can need some time and distance before she can come to realize that she was not responsible for her partner's sexual mistreatment of her, before she can even name what he did. An ex-partner of one of my clients said to me, about 2 years after she and the abuser divorced, "Looking back on it now, I can see that I was raped over and over again for more than 10 years. And she was realizing how destructive his actions had been to her soul. Studies show that women on it now, I can see that I was raped over and over again for more than 10 years. And she was realizing how destructive his actions had been to her soul. Studies show that women whose partners abuse them sexually can have some of the greatest emotional difficulties, including depression, of any abused women.
I mean, that just... Anyway, yeah, so beyond the distraction that this kind of sexual abuse, very, clear sexual abuse, I feel like when it comes to coercion and men sort of pressuring you, asking and asking and asking until you do it, like a lot of people don't consider that abuse. They don't consider that in any way problematic. But this one where he pins you down, everyone is like, on the same page that it's problematic. What's one thing, what's problematic to me, or one thing that maybe, a lot of people would not agree with, but I feel like this is the logical conclusion of the idea that women owe men sex, the idea that there's something like wifely duties, right? As soon as you introduce the fact that you owe a man sex, or that it's your responsibility to fulfill his sexual needs, then there's even nothing like coercion, right? We can't talk about coercion. And then, once you're somebody's wife, you owe them sex. So if you're being all, withholding, in serious quotes, if you're withholding sex from him, he can take it, right? And so many people don't consider marital rape a thing. It's not a thing to them, right? Once you marry somebody, that's as good as giving them consent. And I don't know, I just feel like the power imbalance that exists in heterosexual relationships, this is the logical conclusion of it. This is the logical conclusion of it. When you tell a woman that it is her responsibility to meet a man's sexual needs, that it's her wifely duties. And then you tell a man that, he's sort of owed that. And that when she's not doing it, she's trying to control him with sex and is withholding something from him. This is the logical conclusion of that. This is it. This is the only way. This is the only way that ends. This is the logical conclusion of that. I wonder how many women, like if they were really honest, this is part of their story, right? Either full on rape, or like the stories those women were recounting in the Bancroft clip. He just pressures you and pressures you and pressures you until you're like, okay, fine, whatever, just do it. Just do it, and then I can sleep, and then I can have some peace. This is women's story. I saw an older woman on TikTok who's recently divorced, and not so recent, but like she's had enough time to sort of think about what her relationship was like, and she says majority of the sex was just coercion. It's like, okay, I need I need to have sex with him. I need to give him this. And then, we can have some peace and calm. That's it. This is married women's stories. This is partnered women's stories. This is the story of heterosexual women. And it's devastating. The power imbalance in heterosexual relationships, creates fertile ground for this kind of abuse. And I just, it's so sad. The way she says that, yeah? Oh my God. It reminds me just how destructive to the soul abuse is, how much it breaks you down and wears you down, and then everyone from the outside is like, why you not living, da 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 da, and it's like, you've been broken down. That shit is destroying you.
Oh my God.
I just left, went showered, and just moved on.
You mean he raped you?
Yeah, that's the word, right? And I was just like, okay. Next time he asked politely, can we be intimate? I'm like, no. Like, I honestly and genuinely don't want it. And I can see his frustration. He's like, now what do you want me to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, now at this point, my anger and my calmness is, I just can't. I'm unable. So I tell him, you have so-and-so you can go to, you have so-and-so, you have so-and-so, and you have so-and-so. Why are you here? You complain to so-and-so and so-and-so about how nagging I am, how this and this and that. And since that's what they are, why not be with them? It's like, no, I want to be with you. But as usual, you're not a submissive person. You're not peaceful. And I'm like, and I won't be. If me being that means that you're allowed to talk ill about me and everything, then no. And I'll storm out. He came, pulled my hair, slapped me, punched me. And I'm like, why? And then at the end, he pushed me towards the wall that I hit the corner of the wall. So I had my head was swollen. And he apologizes as usual. And I also apologize. And that was a cycle for 2-3 months. That's all we would do. I'd find out about a woman, he'd hit me, he'd apologize, we'd move on. Find out, hit me, apologize, move on.
I cannot tell you how much that pisses me off. Oh my God, we have such a stupid society, honestly. We have such a stupid, aggressively dumb society. Why is she apologizing? He slaps her, punches her, hits her head on a wall, right? All because she's confronted him about his cheating, his unfaithfulness. And then they both apologize. He apologizes, and then she apologizes. And what? What? This is just the logical conclusion of that nonsense we espouse about, it takes two to tango. The issues on both sides. Fuck that. If somebody beats you up, you don't apologize for nothing. They apologize. They're the only ones who apologize. And we teach everybody this, including kids. Some kid beats up your child, right? And then you make the other kid apologize. And then you also make your kid apologize. For fighting back. Or the school punishes both of them. Fuck that. Why is she apologizing? I mean, the way we structure this society is so fucked up. It's aggressively fucked up. Anyway, what also stands out for me in this is how it's just getting worse. It's just getting worse. The abuse is it's just getting worse. It started out with a slap, and then now it's punches and being hit on the wall. Abuse always escalates.
So that day he hit me, it was the first time I told my best friend that Bumpy hit me. My best friend was like, was it the first time? It wasn't the first time, but I told her yes. I was so ashamed. I was filled with guilt, shame, and anger. My best friend is like, maybe talk to him and see what's going on. And I'm like, okay, let's try. So I Googled how to ask submissively talk to your husband so that he can just talk to me.
I mean, the way this society is structured is just, I can't even. A man is beating you up, right? And you're the one having to go and look for ways to communicate with him in a way that he will hopefully understand. Her friend tells her to talk to him. To talk to him. Society is structured in just a way that we're always just supposed to give men the benefit of the doubt, just talk to him, just explain, just find, like, if you just find the language, if you just find the words. Always, like, men have to be given another chance, and we're just always like, always with the benefit of the doubt. Like, he couldn't just be a terrible person. It can't just be that he's a terrible, terrible human being who should be left the fuck alone. Like, no. It's always something. And you see this a lot with, like, abusive stories, when stories of abuse come out. And, for example, one that came out a few months ago in Kenya. Like, it's stories every day, but this one really stuck with me. This man proposed to this woman, and she said no. He wanted them to move in together, and she said no. And then he poured hot water on her, severely burning her, and she had to be rushed to hospital. And when this news broke, people were like, you know what? Like, a guy wouldn't just do that. Like, we need to hear his side of things. And always giving men the benefit of the doubt. Like, it can't just be what you've been told. It's got to be something else. So her friend says, talk to him. And she goes on to start looking for ways to try and, how can I best communicate with him? And this is women in relationships. Always trying to educate themselves, trying to learn something new so that it can benefit them and the relationship. How many men do you know who read a self-help book on relationships? How many? Anyway, so let's talk about why talking to abusive men cannot work. It simply cannot work. It cannot work. All right, let's talk about it. A guy called Chuck Derry, who used to run court-mandated groups for men who batter, wrote an article called "Abusive Men Describe the Benefits of Violence." I'm currently reading it from voicemailmagazine.org. Okay, so he had this group and he was teaching these men these skills, or like this, healthy relationship building, skills building, emotional things, blah, 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 self-control, that kind of thing. And then he'd send them home to go and practice those new skills that month. And then they'd come back and say to him, oh yeah, those skills are not working. And he'd be like, what do you mean they're not working? And so they explain to him and they're like, yeah, I'm trying to get her to do something. And when I use the skills, she doesn't do them. And he's like, oh. They were using those skills to try and control women even more effectively. They were here at the Batterer program because they were abusing women, right? Abusing and controlling women. And they were using the skills that they were being taught to try and continue to do that even more effectively. Alright, so he says to himself, there must be a benefit to this thing. If they're fighting this hard to hold on to it, if they're this invested in maintaining this controlling and abusive behavior, there must be a benefit. So he says to them, let's talk, guys, tell me, what are the benefits? And at first they're like, there are no benefits. I mean, it's none, there are no benefits. And then eventually, the first one speaks. And so everyone starts talking, right? The doors open and everyone starts talking. All right, so here's a list of just a minute. So here's a list of the benefits they cited until they ran out of space. All right, they were writing on some kind of whiteboard thing until they ran out of space. All right, cool. She's scared and won't go out and spend money. Get your way, go out. Respect. She won't argue. Feeling superior. She's accountable to me in terms of being somewhere on time. I decide. Keeps relationship going. She's too scared to leave. Get the money. Get sex. Total control in decision making. Use money for drugs. Don't have to change for her. Power. Decide where to go as a couple. Who to see. What to wear. Control the children. If she's late, she won't be again. Intimidation. She's scared and can't confront me. Can convince her she's screwing up. She feels less worthy, so defers to my needs and wants. She will look up to me and accept my decisions without an argument. Decide her social life, what she wears, so you can keep your image by how she acts. She's to blame for the battering. She's an object. I get a robot babysitter, maid, sex, food. Ego booster. She tells me I'm great. Bragging rights. If she works, get her money. Get her to quit job so she can take care of the house. Isolate her so friends can't confront me. Decide how money is spent. I'm breadwinner. Buy the toys I want. Take time for myself. She has to depend on me if I break her stuff. I get to know everything. She's a nursemaid. She comforts me. Supper on the table. Invite friends over without her knowing. More work for her. No compromise, more freedom. Don't have to listen to her complaints for not letting her know stuff. She works for me. I don't have to help out. I don't have to hang out with her or kids. Determine what values kids have, who they play with, what school they go to, or getting to ignore the process. Dictating what they need. Food, clothes, recreation, etc. Dictate reality, etc. Kids on my side against her. Kids do what I say. Mold kids / her so that they will help do what I should do. Keeps kids quiet about abuse. Don't have to get up, take out garbage, watch kids, do dishes, get up at night with kids, do laundry, change diapers, clean house, bring kids to appointments or activities, mop floors, clean refrigerator, etc. Answer to nobody. Do what you want when you want to. Get to ignore or deny your history of violence and other irresponsible behavior. Get to write history. Get to determine future. Choose battles and what it will cost her. Proves your superiority. Win all arguments. Don't have to listen to her wishes, complaints, anger, fears, etc. Make the rules, then break them when you want. So she won't get help against you for past beatings because she has no friends to support her and she is confused by my lies. Convince her she's nuts. Convince her she's unattractive. Convince her she's to blame. Convince her she's the problem. I can dump on her, can use kids to spy on mom. Kids won't tell mom what I did. Kids won't disagree with me. Don't have to talk to her. I'm the king of the castle. Can make yourself scarce. Have someone to unload on. Have someone to bitch at. She won't call police. Tell kids don't have to listen to mom. Get her to drop charges. Get her to support me, to her family, my family, cops, judge, SCIP, prosecutors, etc. Get her to admit it's her fault. Okay, that's the benefits, right? That's the benefits. Now, let's talk about the downsides, right? The negative bits of being a person who's this controlling, being this abusive. What are the negative sides? According to this man, right? So this is all they supplied and they wrote a whole whiteboard of it, right? Let's see, the downsides of it. So this is what they listed as the negative bits. You could get arrested, divorce, get protection orders taken against you, adult kids don't invite you to their weddings, and you have to go to groups like this. That's the whole list of disadvantages. That's the whole list. Five things. 1, you could get arrested. 2, you could get divorced. 3, you could get protection orders taken against you. 4, adult kids don't invite you to their weddings. And 5, you may be forced to go to groups like this. Butterer groups. Those are the 5 downsides of being an abusive person. And we have seen the benefits, right? A whole whiteboard of benefits. You tell me, what words could you possibly use to convince somebody to give up a whole whiteboard of benefits for 5, because of 5 measly downsides? No, you tell me. Why would you give up that whole board? What could you possibly say? How could you possibly speak to somebody to convince them to give that up? There is no talking to abusive men. There is no talking to abusive men. You could search, you could do whatever Google searches, you could read books. There is no talking to them because it makes no sense. Nobody would take that stupid deal to leave all of those benefits behind. Nobody would take that stupid deal. It's a dumb deal, right? Normal people who are not abusive will say, oh, being abusive sort of wrecks your relationships and you're not intimate with the people you care about, blah, blah, blah. Hello? Who makes you think, what the hell makes you think that abusive people care about that? They don't care about intimacy and like having a good relationship with you. I mean, don't be stupid. They don't care about that. They care about this power. They get to control everything. They control you. They control the kids. They control what other people think about you. They only get to do what they want, right? You get to do all of the other bad parts. They take out their anger on you. Like, dude, they don't get to do anything they don't want. Like, they get the full benefits of a relationship without having to compromise anything. They don't have to negotiate on anything. Whatever they want goes. Why would they give that up? Like, can we be serious? Why would they give that up? This is why counseling for abusive men does not work. It's why batterer programs don't work. They just don't work. Bancroft in his book talks about how it eventually occurred to him that abusive men rarely change. And when that did, he was like, okay, yeah, from here on out, the women are my primary clients. This is who I can help. I can help her understand what's happening. I can help her understand how he's controlling and manipulating her. I can provide her with whatever resources she would require in order to leave, if she wanted to. I could show her, I could give her options. I could show her what's possible. I could help her heal after the fact. I could make her less vulnerable to his manipulations and lies. Abusive men stand to benefit too much. I mean, the benefits are too many for them to give that shit up. Too many. So, yeah. Stop with this trying to talk to abusive men. There's no talking to abusive men. There's no language you can use to convince them to give up a whole whiteboard of things because they're scared of 5 measly things. And then give that up for what? For nothing? To be an ordinary schmuck who has to negotiate things with this girl? Or who has to do dishes and sometimes change a diaper? Like, ugh. Who would take that deal? Why would they take that deal? Stop trying to talk to abusive men. It's no talking to them. It's really dumb. There's no reason to try to talk to them. They have a good deal. Alright? Shit is working out for them. They would not give that up. Shit is working the fuck out for them. Okay, cool.
How to ask submissively to talk to your husband so that he can just talk to me without the anger, without the heating. I went, spoke to him. He said something outrageous, of course, and I went crazy. I'm also talking back. He's hit me. Makia was hit last night. Today's another night. I'm being hit again. And I for the first time, I just told Bumpy that, honestly, Bumpy, eventually, we are going to get divorced. He's like, no, you have a child of this compound. You will never leave this compound. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I asked him, what happens to the children of that you sire that are from this family and this compound? And I was like, your other child is your child.
Oh, yes, there was the lady with the birth certificate. So it was his child?
It was his child.
And you knew this?
Yes.
Okay. So
she did a DNA test that I paid for.
Oh, my God.
So she was pregnant, yes. And the other...
Did his mom know?
No.
Okay.
There was also the baby mama. So I was like...
Oh, yes.
You've been having children and they're not in this compound. And I feel like the moment they're not in this compound, they're suddenly doing well. So what again are you going to be telling me? He went crazy. He punched me. At this moment, I was punched in my ribs and I could feel I'm not breathing. And I could feel like I'm tasting blood in my mouth. And I'm like, what's going on? By the time I'm processing this, he slapped me. He's pulled my hair. He's banged me on the wall. I can hear my daughter scream and I'm like, Bumpy, our daughter is screaming because you're making me scream. Have some decency. And he's like, I don't care. I really don't care. You're here disrespecting me, disrespecting this household, disrespecting our marriage just because of some women. And I'm like, wow, wow, wow. It was never him. He was never at fault. It was always me. And I was hit. And by the time he was going to now cut my daughter because she was crying, I was not bleeding. My eyelid had swollen because I had banged myself on the wall. My rib felt like it was.
Okay. Before we go on, one, as we have said many times, abuse escalates, right? Abuse escalates. So now, it's not just slaps and punches. She's bleeding, and he's dragging her by her hair on the floor. Their baby is screaming, is crying, right? The baby is crying because she's scared because her mom is crying. Her mom is screaming. So, and he says he doesn't care. So I want us to go back to that first time when he beat her up when she was pregnant, right? And she says, Bumpy, do you not see like I'm pregnant with your kid? And then she says it was like he came out of a trance, like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? So now you see this time, he says he doesn't give a fuck. This is what he always was. He didn't give a fuck even then, right? He was pretending. He needed to pretend then because that was just the beginning of him beating her up. So he needed to pretend that, oh my God, he just lost control or whatever. He didn't lose no control. Men don't lose control. There's no loss of control. They know exactly what they're doing when they're doing this shit. Some chick on TikTok just sort of shared a clip from Bancroft's book, and she was talking about a section where Bancroft asks abusive men why they didn't do more. Like, if you already have her on the ground and you can stomp her, properly, like finish her, why don't you do it? And without fail, they always have an excuse. They always have a reason, so to speak, a reason why they didn't do anymore. Oh, I realized the kids were watching. Oh, I was afraid somebody would call the police. Oh, I didn't want to kill her. Men know what they're doing. Men know what they're doing. They choose the amount of force that they choose to use. They choose the strategies. They choose, like, the action. It's all very deliberate. It's on purpose. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. He knew it then. He knows it now. The only reason they pretend to have lost control is so you feel sad for them. You feel sorry for them. Yeah? And it maintains, it helps retain this image of them as not being like, totally horrible human beings who cannot be saved, right? So even then, that first time, she was like, oh, like when I told him, Bumpy, like, nigga, I'm pregnant with your kid. He sort of looked like he was coming from a trance. So he's faking that, right? So that she's not like, oh, this is just a horrible motherfucker who doesn't even care that I'm pregnant. So she's like, oh, like he lost himself. He didn't lose shit. He didn't lose shit. Listen me the fuck off. Not Sophia. Abuses, obviously. Thank you.
I can hear my daughter scream, and I'm like, Bumpy, our daughter is screaming because you're making me scream. Have some decency. And he's like, I don't care. I really don't care. You're here disrespecting me, disrespecting this household, disrespecting our marriage just because of some women. And I'm like, wow. It was never him. He was never at fault. It was always me. And I was hit. And by the time he was going to now cut my daughter because she was crying, I was not bleeding. My eyelid had swollen because I had banged myself on the wall. My rib felt like it was.
This is so sad. It's so sad. It's so sad. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Any man who talks about respect and you disrespecting them, and the fact that men need respect, like those two things essentially, how men need respect and how you're disrespecting them because you raise certain issues or you confront them about their behavior. Any man who talks about men needing respect is a man you should be afraid of. Truly speaking, men needing respect is just a euphemism for you don't stand up to them, you don't say nothing, you don't contradict them, you don't confront them. That's what it is. It means you let them have their way. They're in charge, they have the final say, they're the boss, they're the leader. The buck stops like with them. They decide, right? If he says he doesn't want you doing something, you don't do it, right? If in this case, if he says, he doesn't want you confronting him about his many extramarital affairs, you don't. Right? And if you do choose to confront him, or you're disrespecting him, you're disrespecting your relationship, fuck that. Everybody, every fucking person needs respect. Until you have a reason not to respect them, everybody needs respect. Everybody needs respect. This is not some novel thing that only men need. Right? Respect is like water, I guess. Right? Let's use water as an analogy. Everybody needs water. Everyone needs water. So we don't go around saying, oh, women need water, men need water, children need water. Fuck that. Everybody needs water. So now what? Everybody needs respect. So now what? No, you don't respect me. Fuck you and your respect. I swear to God, and I'm not even lying. Like, this isn't that shit that people say online and like they don't do it in their real life. A man tells me that men need respect. That is the day I lose all respect for him. That's the day. That's the day I lose all respect for you. All of it. Fuck you. Fucking asshole. Everybody needs respect. What about the respect that she needs? What about Sophia? What, she don't need respect? Fucking asshole.
How am I going to explain to my clients, why is my lip busted? Why is my nose swollen? Why is my eyelid so... I don't have an explanation. Plus, I'd been lying so many times to my clients about the bruises I have. It now felt like my clients are just going to suspect me now. I stayed home for a week. I lost clients during that week because they could not understand the inconsistency. I couldn't tell them of the inconsistency. There are some clients that are really concerned and really called and could not hang up until I told them the truth. They would tell me, it's okay, I'll call you later when your husband is not around. And I want you to tell me what's going on.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Whew.
And I had 2 clients that were like, you know what? It's okay, I'll give you this month off. And it was under the condition, you need to leave. I want by the next month, you're done and you've left. And I'm like, okay. I was like, okay. I told my best friend of now everything. One day I just sat down and I told her of the 3 Psalms, of all the heating and everything. And she's like, you can't do this. You have a daughter. It can't go on. And I was like, yes. But every time I said yes, it's true, it can't go on, I still stayed in that marriage. It made no sense. That day I was hit. Week 1, I'm not going to work.
I'd like us to remember that when she says, that she continued to stay and it made no sense.
It can't go on. And I was like, yes. But every time I said yes, it's true, it can't go on, I still stayed in that marriage. It made no sense.
It's because it can't make sense. Abuse is about breaking you down. Right? You had what those abusers said in that list of benefits. You make her feel stupid, you make her feel ugly, you make her, feel like she can't even trust her own decisions, so that she always relies on the decisions that you make. You isolate her from everybody. You break her down. Essentially, that's what it is. You break her down, you make her feel stupid, you make her feel ugly, you make her feel like just dumb. You break her down. You break her spirit. That's what you do. You break her spirit. And this is why people stay. Because you're not the same you who got into that relationship. You're the you that he's made. The partner that he's created. The one who puts up with his shit. The one who's scared and timid and afraid and the one who's doing things that, given an opportunity, when you look back, you're just like, what was that? Like, I would have never did that. So yeah, I think that this is something important for all of us to remember, that abuse is about breaking you down. It's about destroying your spirit. It's about just making you this shell of the person you used to be. And abusers are skilled at that. They know what they're doing.
That day I was hit. Week 1, I'm not going to work. After that, it got to a point where he would not allow me to leave the compound with my daughter. Whether I'm going to the shop, no. It got to a point, if he wanted to talk to me and he thought the conversation would get heated, he'd take our daughter to the mom to hold our daughter. And it was crazy. He'd come home, Bumpy would come to the house, we'd talk. He'd hit me. I had to be hit and then go back to his mom, take my daughter as though I've not been hit. This is okay. We were just talking. It was normal marital stuff. And go back to the house. Now breastfeed my daughter while crying.
It pisses me off how abusers always have like this support crew around them. So, fuck that. So his mom is ready at hand to receive the child so that Bumpy can come back and beat her up. Mothers of boys are like just the worst. Mothers of boys are the fucking worst. He beat her up so bad she couldn't go to work. Like, she was physically injured. Visibly injured. That she couldn't go to work. She lost work. She lost clients. And then he's holding her kid hostage. The child that he doesn't give a fuck about. To control her. Men do not give a fuck about kids. They do not give a fuck about kids. They don't. Children exist for abusive men, largely. I don't think men in general like kids, but anyway, whatever. Let's talk about abusive men in particular. They don't care about kids. They don't give a fuck about kids. Kids are just a useful tool for them to control their women. Right? And to look like men, yeah. Whatever prestige we have decided to accord men who procreate.
There are some clients that are really concerned and really called and could not hang up until I told them the truth. They would tell me, it's okay, I'll call you later when your husband is not around. And I want you to tell me what's going on.
Oh my God. Whew.
First of all, fuck that Bumpy and all abusive men everywhere. And just shout out to those people who told her they'd call her back. Like, they sense, oh, okay, it's like she can't speak. It's like he's there and they're like, I'll call you back. I'll call you back when he's not there. Like, more power to people who do this. Like, geez, this should be all of us. This should be all of us. Shout out to those people who did that for her. Like, yeah. I mean, we all need to learn how to be there for people who are going through this in a way that's not, I guess, judgmental, right? Because I bet it's people who would listen to her and just be like, this chick is dumb. Why she staying with this nigga? Me, I'm out. And, you know, like, I'm not judging you. Like, that's a choice, right? I'm not judging you. You got there somehow. You got there. But, like, I feel like we need to always remember that abuse breaks a woman down. It's destructive to her soul, her spirit. She's not herself, right? In a lot of ways, she's not herself. And, like, you know, to the extent that you're able to be there, be the friend who calls and says, you know what, I'm gonna holler back when that nigga's not there. And then you can tell me what's going on. The one who says, listen, yeah, I'm not gonna move. I'm not gonna take my work away from you. I'm gonna still give you whatever jobs I was gonna give you, but like, you know, maybe get it done next week, like something like that. Like, they gave her grace. And that's like real love and friendship. They gave her grace. They were like, okay, I'm gonna extend it, like, please just get it did. Or like, I'm gonna call you when he's not there, like, I don't know. I like that. Celebrate those people.
It tells me there's a number here that has texted you hi dear so many times, and I'm like, I have nothing to do with that. I don't know who that is because I have nobody who texts me hi dear. And he doesn't believe me. He yanks me out of the bathroom and he's like, you need to explain this hi dear. Is this the reason why you'd sit down and tell me you want to get divorced and eventually we will? I'm like, no, the reason we get divorced is because of you, your anger, and you constantly hitting me. He's like, yeah, if you are peaceful and if you are submissive, I wouldn't need to be hitting you. You have anger issues. And I'm like, okay. I just said, okay. He got mad. He started hitting me.
God, I hate this man. Like, I hate this nigga. I hate him. Shit. Anyway, I feel like everybody who watched this thing just hates his guts completely. Like, you just hate him. Anyway, so I want to talk about this high dear thing. I think that he knew it was nothing. I think he knew it was nothing, but it was just an opportunity to abuse her, and like he took it. So I'm gonna tell you like two stories, and I think both of them are by Bancroft. So one is this one with a guy who goes to pick his wife up at an office building, and the other is this guy who would get drunk so that he can use it as an excuse to beat his wife. So anyway, the drunk guy would just like decide, he's like, oh yeah, today I want to beat her up. But like he needs an excuse, right? He needs an excuse, and he also needs to like suppress that part of him that feels guilt. And so what he would do is go and get drunk and then come and just like beat her up. And it would be like, oh, you know what? I was drunk. But he knows, he left the house going to get drunk, knowing exactly what he was going to do. He just wanted to lower his inhibitions and get some kind of excuse, on her end. So she'd be like, he's only like this when he's drunk. Fuck that. He knew exactly what he was doing. And then there's the other guy who, he was supposed to meet his wife for lunch, and she was working at this like busy company office complex thing. And then so she comes down in the elevator, and there's a guy in the elevator with her. And so her husband gets irrationally mad, like, dude, proper mad. And he's like, I know you were fucking him in the elevator. And she's like, what? And she's like, no. And he was certain of it, and he berated her. I don't know if he beat up. I don't remember if he beat up. But he was like, oh my God. Like, he took to task over it. Like, just like, you did it. I know you did it. Like, that kind of thing. And so when they went to group session, Bancroft is like, and the other guys are like, dude, did you really think she did it? Like, in a busy office building at lunchtime? Like, do you think she had full-on sex with a guy under those conditions? And he's like, nah. Like, I know she didn't. He knew she didn't. Right? It was an opportunity presented itself to abuse her, to make her feel terrible, to demean her. An opportunity presented itself, and he took it. This is Bumpy. An opportunity presented itself. He knew exactly what he was doing. It was just, oh, okay, cool. Men know what they're doing. Men always know what they're doing. Right? They know what they're doing. He knows what he's doing. None of this is like just, like, he's not irrational and stupid. Women get idea texts all the time. Women get these texts all the time. He knows she's not cheating. He knows. He knew. He was just like, I want to fuck up her life a little bit. I want to show her who's boss today, Fucking bullshit.
And punches my tummy. Where he's holding me, I beat his hand for him to let go. And I rushed out. And I was screaming in the compound. He immediately took our daughter to the mom, like he always does. And I'm like, you know what? I want to leave. I actually want to leave today. I want to leave this marriage. I'm done. And he's like, you can go, but leave my daughter. And I'm looking at him. The daughter he's saying for me to leave is 4 months old. 4.5 at most. So I'm asking him, leave my daughter, how? She's a breastfeeding baby. You don't even breastfeed. You pump that milk and you go to work and meet those people who write text messages for you, like saying hi, dear. And I'm like,
oh my God, like, abuses are so funny. Like, not funny, but like, niggas be crazy. So, this man has been cheating. He has 2 children out of wedlock that we know of, right? He has 2 children out of wedlock that we know of. And he's been banging all manner of people in that time. Like, he's been fucking around, right? He's been getting around. He gets one motherfucking text that doesn't even have anything incriminating in it. It's just hi dear. And he loses his shit. He's been up. Shit.
are you going to base this whole conversation on idea from somebody I don't know? And like, those are your options. I don't care. You want to leave? Go. Leave my child. And I'm like, I just pushed through him. I went upstairs and to the mom and was trying to take my daughter. As I was trying to take my daughter from my mom-in-law, I would see her turn around for me not to access my daughter and take her from her arms. And I just looked at her and I'm like, I asked, are you turning so that I don't take my daughter? Like, no, you're angry. And I'm like, what does that anger have to do with my child? This is my child. I gave birth to this child. I want to leave this marriage and I want to live with my child. Eventually, Bumpy's brother came in and I was not allowed to take the child, after all.
Look at all these people rallying to defend an abuser. All of them know exactly what this nigga's doing. They know. She's 20 years old. She's 20 years old. Like, that's almost a child. She's 20 years old. And all of these adults, so to speak, right, are rallying to defend and support the abuser, including his mom.
I was only allowed to breastfeed her, and on breastfeeding, they all stood there as I breastfed until she fell asleep. At this point, I have just texted my best friend what has just happened. My best friend is like, I can't take this anymore. You're hurt, I'm not okay, and I'm afraid you're going to die. She texted my mom. She called my mom and told her everything, from the threesomes to me being hit to everything. My mother called me boiling. And I told my mom, it's okay, let me just come home. I'll come to you, don't come. I left. I went to my mom's house. I'm crying. My mom is not understanding. She's like, Mom, you're too beautiful to be going through this. I'm crying. I'm trying to understand. When did it get to this point? Like, when did I even let it get to this point? And it was crazy. My mom is like, no.
Like, that's really interesting framing. Where she says, when did I let it get to this point? How did I let it get to this point? And I'm going to try and find that clip. About how it gets harder to leave an abuser over time, not easier. And in fact, it's easier to leave a non-abusive man than it is to leave an abusive man. The number that abusive men play on you, the way they break you down, like, Alright, let's listen to Bancroft and then we'll get back. Okay, no, first let's listen to the girl and then we'll come back and listen to Bancroft about why it's harder to leave abusive men. Okay, cool.
You need to leave. Sat down and told my mom, I want 2 weeks and I'll have left. She asked me what's going to happen in 2 weeks. She's like, I won't tell you. In 2 weeks, I'm going to come back and I'm coming back with my daughter. She's like, okay, you go back home. I went home. This man refused to open the door for me. Completely. Until the mom had to come down to see what the commotion is about at the gate. And I'm like, he refuses me to enter the house. Bumpy's mom tells me that what you did was not right, Sophia. And I'm like, what do you mean? You people stood there as I breastfed my child, a child that I gave birth to. You people stood there and let me not take my child after I've told you I want to leave this marriage with my child. And all of you told me that I can't. So what did I do wrong? I just left and went to my mom. The same way your son, Bumpy, leaves and comes to you. So what's the problem? She's like, makes sense. I entered. Bumpy's dad now is on the phone. I'm being told of how disrespectful I am and how I should learn to live with Bumpy. And I just told him immediately, no. Before you take a phone, call me and tell me I'm being disrespectful. Ask your boy what he specifically did. Ask for the real story, not this surface story that he tells you that tumejibishana, we've had an argument. No. Tell him to tell you exactly what he did. And he's like, he's told me. And I'm like, if he told you, I don't think you'd be telling me I'm disrespectful. And I specifically told the dad, I want to leave this compound. Same way I came, I have free will to live with my child. The dad does not live within a country. He lives in another country.
My God. Abusers and their apologists. So now, they call his dad. Oh my God. Like, I'm not even lying to you. I swear to God, this is like just God's truth. You're better off calling the village woman who sells. Heck, maybe, even the village woman who is like, not all together there. The one everyone is like, oh, she's losing it. The one who makes noise at the marketplace. You're better off calling that woman to give me advice than calling a man like somebody's dad? Oh my God, could never be me. I'm getting marital advice from somebody's dad. Hey, the devil is a liar. I'm not even lying to you. The devil is a fucking liar. The devil is a motherfucking liar. I'm listening to advice from his dad. You know what's interesting to me? Beyond having to listen to advice from a nigga on the phone, like, what? Oh my God. So, it's the fact that she says that if his dad knew what Bumpy had done, he wouldn't be talking to her like that, babe. Babe, it's that you're 20 years old and you're really young. But like, his dad knows. His dad knows. He knew. He didn't give a fuck. He didn't give one fuck. Right? It's within men's rights to beat up their wives. You think that would have shook him and made him go like, oh, it's my son who's on the wrong. It's not you who's being disrespectful. He knew. He didn't give a fuck. He didn't give one fuck that his 30-something-year-old son was beating up a 20-year-old. He didn't give one fuck. Anywho, I cannot believe that family holding her kid hostage. Hey, oh my God, I had to call in the dad to talk to her. Whoa. Hey, Patriarch is a shit show. Nigga isn't even there, and he's being called to weigh in. Oh, not me, friends, not me. Fuck that. I mean, it's two people who I don't take advice from. And that's the same fuck them niggas. It's two people I don't take advice from. Men and old women. Like, it's not you. It's you, really. It really is you. But it's also me. Like, I don't respect y'all. I don't take advice from you. Unless you're saying, fuck them niggas. Unless it's women like my grandmother who was like, yeah, you need to be in no hurry to marry this man. In fact, you're better off alone. Right? Unless you're that kind of woman. Unless you're that kind of old woman. Nope. No. Nope. Alright, let's listen to Bancroft. Okay.
He intimidates you when he's angry. Intimidation, even if it appears unintentional, is a sign that emotional abuse is on the way, or has already begun, and is a warning flag that physical violence may eventually follow. The more deeply involved you become with an intimidating man, the more difficult it will be to get out of the relationship. Unfortunately, many women believe just the opposite. They think, well, he does scare me a little sometimes, but I'll wait and see if it gets worse, and I'll leave him if it does. But getting away from someone who has become frightening is much more complicated than most people realize, and it gets harder with each day that passes. Don't wait around to see.
All right, cool. That's it. It gets harder to live. And that's why, honestly, my thing is, I'm going to live as soon as the first thing you do, and I swear to God this is true, the first thing you do that scares me, that makes me nervous, right? Not in a good way, that just chills me. The first thing you do that makes me go like, that's the last thing you do. That's also the last thing you do. I'm out. Listen, I'm a chicken, right? Like, I'm going through too much. I'm not going to take a risk in dealing with your ass. Like, listen, I was not made for that. I was not made. I am barely surviving the harsh things about life as it currently is. Ooh, I see a problem, I run. I don't stay, I run. I don't even walk, I run. I see a problem with a man, I run. Oh, yeah. No. The first thing you do that scares me, the very first one, or you yelling at me, you coming all up in my face, a threat, the first one, the first time, like, nigga, No second chances with me. The stakes are too motherfucking high. The stakes are too high. I don't do that. I don't take risks. The stakes are too high. And I am, like, I have no more risk taking left in me. I have none left, right? To the extent that I have any, they are left for, like, I'm guessing political struggle. But, like, now struggle in my personal life? No. That's what we're not gonna do. That's what we're not doing. Thank you. The first time. Like, I am a one striker one time. You need to scare me one time. One time. One time. One time. You need to cheat on me one time. One time. In fact, you don't even need to cheat on me one time. I need to suspect you could be cheating on me one time. And then I'm like, listen. I don't need no evidence. I don't need nothing. Like, if you're saying you didn't do it, good. If you're saying you didn't do it, by the way, if I could, like, good for you. Good for you. Right? But I am out. Like, I don't do that. Listen, I don't have it in me. I'm busy surviving capitalism. Like, I'm paddling furiously. I can barely keep my head above water. Like, I don't need no more stress. Like, I can't handle it. Do you hear me? I cannot handle it. I can't take it. I am weak of spirit. I cannot handle it. Bye. Vaya con Dios.
That lady sounded as though that there was like a hidden agenda they were talking about. So after the phone call, he was seated trying to explain to me why it sounded odd. And I was like, okay. Then he'd leave my phone. He'd always tell me to go through his phone. It became like almost daily. Just go through my phone. Don't assume I'm texting people, like things like that. So I never did when he said I should. So one day I went through his WhatsApp and I'm like, it's too clean. I think I was so used to him doing something. So it was too clean. And I was like, oh, maybe he has actually just learned his lesson. So I just started maybe getting into the idea of he's learned his lesson. We're still in week 1 of me saying, remember I said I want 2 weeks, then I'll leave. So this is week 1. It's about to end.
I just want us to remember there's no such thing as an abuser learning his lesson. There's no such thing as that. There's nothing like that. It's too many benefits to abusing people for a man to learn his lesson. There's no lesson. There's no changing. None of that. There's no lesson. There's no changing. None of that.
So I go to work and I come back. I come back and I realize that he's still in the house. He was supposed to go for some job interview and to do some online interviews as well. He's still in the house. I ask him about it. He's like, no, I didn't go. I didn't feel like it was worthwhile. And I'm like, you're not earning any money. I'm going to work. On top of going to work, I have to miss some days because you've hit me so bad. Why wouldn't you just decide to help? And then I went on and told him, with the other women, you're always buying them stuff. You're always going out for coffee. Where do you get that money? Because I don't see it in this house. In this house, you're always broke. And I'm always providing for everything. And he's like, oh, so what does that mean? I'm like, it means exactly that. It means your money, whenever you get your money, it goes to other women. And I knew for a fact there's one of the women he used to see that used to give him money. So I was asking him, and how come you're given money by so-and-so and you never come back to this house? Where are you taking it? Or are you using that money to take another woman out for coffee and the likes? And he's like, you're so disrespectful. You have no respect for me as your husband. And I'm like, neither do you. You have no respect for me as a wife. You're disrespectful to me, disrespectful to the women you're talking to. Honestly, at this point, I don't even think you should address anything about respect.
We've already spoken about respect. Fuck people who talk about respect. Men who talk about that? No. Everybody needs respect.
I told my best friend what happened. I told my mom. And my mom is like, you're going to die. I'm going to lose you there. And I'm like, Mom, I have 3 days left, but I'm going to be coming earlier than I thought. And that happened to the weekend. That happened. Sunday came. Monday, I was always off on Mondays. I pretended I had a new client that was just within where we lived. And then I dressed up, carried my bag like I'm going to work. My mom was ready, my uncles were ready, my auntie was ready. Went to the cops. And I told the cops that I want to live an abusive marriage. But my husband, the mom, would not let me. And they would not let me live with my child. The lady I was talking to asked me, how old was your child? I told them my child was 5 months. They're like, in shock. They're like, what would he be doing with a 5-month-old? I'm like, I also don't know.
Controlling you. That's what he would be doing with a 5-month-old. Controlling you. And making sure there's nowhere you're going because you're like, I can't leave my baby. That's what he's doing with a 5-month-old.
And that was that. I was told to come back on Tuesday. But that Tuesday, they were going somewhere. All of them, the whole cop station, they were going to another neighboring county for something. So I wouldn't find someone, especially in the children's services, who are going to help me. So I was told to come back on Wednesday. I couldn't go back home because now the cop has now called Bumpy and told them of what's now happening. So Bumpy is at home with my daughter and my nanny, alone. I am afraid. I don't know what he'll do to my daughter. I don't know what he'll do to the nanny. The nanny called me and told me she's about to leave and I'm not yet home. And I told her to pass by my mom's because she knew where my mom lived. She'd seen me being beaten. She knew exactly what was going on. So I told her, you just continue going until the day I will come with cops to take my daughter's things, my things, and we go. So I had told her to ensure that all my daughter's things are always clean and like kept vizuri, just in case anything happens, it's just going. She's like, sure. And now she'd update me. She'd get home and then she'd tell me, my baby is fine. Of course, she's fussy because she's not breastfed. Me on my end, my boobs are solid raw because I'm still breastfeeding. I left with nothing, not a pump, not anything. So they are like hard. And I was constantly crying because I'm worried for my daughter. I'm also worried for my own self because I don't know what he's going to do at this point. So we are summoned. We are there Wednesday morning. We go and our parents are outside and we have to enter a specific room and we are talking. And for some reason, the gentleman who was listening to our case just said, nyinyi, watu wawili kwa blanketi mkishikana, yenyu ni mapenzi tu mtarudiana. Like that man just said, you two have been together. People who sleep on the same bed. You never know anything about them. You're just young and you just seem like you're in love. So this is just a rough patch. You'll get back together.
This is a cop.
Yes.
Can you imagine that? A cop attached to children's services telling an abused woman whose child is being held hostage, mtarudiana tu, you'll get back together. All of our society, all of our systems, all of our institutions are geared towards supporting, protecting abusers. That's it. That's what they're all doing. The family supporting the abusers. Now the police attached to child services. He talks to abused women all the time. He likely talks to abused women all the time. And this is what he's saying. Is it true that women go back? Yes. Abused women go back all the time. What is it? Is the average 7 times or something like that? Yeah. Abused women go back all the time because you have been broken down. Because that is the cycle of abuse. Now, if ordinary people, because Jules also talks about the cycle and how women go back and they need, several tries before they eventually finally leave. If I know, and Jules knows, and ordinary motherfuckers walking in the streets know, are you telling me the cop doesn't know that abused women need several tries before they successfully leave? He knows. He's a man and he doesn't give a fuck. Like, we're in such serious trouble, right? We're in such serious trouble because the police are abusers, right? They not only abuse the public, they also abuse their spouses. They abuse their wives, right? We know this because in Kenya, not too long ago, government almost considered having some kind of law barring police from marrying each other because they were killing each other like every week. They were just killing each other like every week, and they were like, you know what, maybe these people need to marry civilians, right? So that they can kill, the killing can go one way, at least they won't both have guns, right? This is a cop. Wow. So, number 1, police are abusive, also to their partners. So we can't have male police handling this because of that, right? He's an abuser. He probably went home and beat up his wife that day. or had beaten up earlier that week or sometime that month, like, that's a nigga who's beaten up somebody. That's a nigga who's beaten up a woman. So we can't have men manning that desk. It's really not helpful. Look at that. It's not helpful. And then we also can't have women because the way society is structured, if a woman is abused by men, it's something shameful and like they internalize that and it's something the woman did, so like that's a you problem, like you did some. And if a woman has not been abused, then it's like, you know, they're just like, you know, what's up with these chicks who are letting men do this to them? Like, what's wrong with them? So that's also not helpful. Yeah, so we are in serious trouble. We're in serious trouble. You'd imagine you'd be forgiven for thinking that officers manning the child services desk and everyone working in that child services, you know, department has sort of been trained about abuse and how abused women respond and how children need to be treated and how abused men respond. Like, they called the man before she even got the kid. So now she can't even see the kid because she doesn't know what that nigga's gonna do when she gets there. Like, she can't go. He knows. They have told a man who has a history of beating this woman up. They've given him more ammunition, more things to be pissed about. Hey, this man. Okay.
And I just told the cop, that's okay. Until that day, that's fine. For now, we are here. This is what I want. So he's trying to listen to our stories because that's how it goes. He speaks, I speak. He speaks, I speak. And all through, I can just hear him saying, oh, it's because I don't want to listen. I'm refusing to be submissive. I don't want to be peaceful. It's because of my insecurities. But overall, I'm just in love with him. And this is just a rough patch. That's what he says. No, Bumpy. And I agree. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay. So I asked him, all those times you hit me, it's because you loved me, right? All those times you left our home with knowing that you're supposed to be somewhere, trying to get a job or doing something, but instead you're in a woman's house. That was also because you loved me. I asked him, all those times you were talking ill about me to another woman to gain their favor, I'm guessing that's also because you loved me.
I really love what she said to the cop. She's like, you know what? Yeah, well, I guess, you know, you're right. It could just be some kind of lovers spat and whatever, but we're here now, so this is what I want. And like, fuck that cop. And more power to this girl.
How about first go for lunch all of us as a family, since it's her birthday? Sure.
Okay, so a little background. They've separated at this point. The child is living with her. Bumpy gets to see the kid. And so it's the child's birthday, and she wants to create special memories for the kid, where even when she looks back, when the baby looks back, there's going to be pictures of her and like her dad and her mom. All right, cool. So that's what Sophia's doing. Cool.
How about we first go for lunch all of us as a family, since it's her birthday? And I'm like, sure. We're there, we've ordered food, and he's like, you know what? I want us to talk. I'm just like, you always have an agenda. Of course, you wouldn't want to have lunch as a family and just be quiet. Like, no, I just want to talk about something. And he's like, it's been so and so months we've been apart. During this month, I've had a lot of self-reflect and talking to you and seeing how my daughter is doing. I don't want to be in her life. And I'm like, that's why we're co-parenting. That's why we're figuring it out. Long story short, we did not come to an agreement. And at the end of that conversation, his specific words were, if that's the case, if we're not going to be getting back together, now or in future, I don't want anything to do with your child. And if anybody asks me, you no longer exist to me, you and your daughter.
Wow, how on brand, how on brand. Have we not had it said a couple million times that niggas only like a kid when they like the mom? When they like the mom. If they have access to the mom, okay, then they can put up with the kid. But just the kid alone? No. Men wouldn't even hang out with the kid in a house where they live and somebody else does majority of the domestic labor, including childcare. They still won't even hang out with the kid. So you think he's gonna hang out with the kid as a single parent? Like on his own? Responsible for everything, like, you know, the feeding, the cleaning, the hanging out, the playing, the teaching? What? There you have it. There you saw it. He's like, I want nothing to do with your kid. Okay. Okay. This is the same nigga that was saying, oh, any child of this compound can't leave. Nonsense.
And that has been that. So since then, I have been figuring out parenting as a single mom, which has been amazing. And yeah.
Wow. I'm even speechless. Wow. I don't even know, man. Sophia. So let me just ask, in your perspective, as an obvious victim of domestic violence, and I'm asking this question, I know it might be a bit controversial, but I want to ask because we know statistically that women who are in abusive relationships, it takes something like, the average is something like 7 or 8 times of leaving before they finally leave. And this is an average, meaning it could be 15 or it could be less than that.
Yeah.
So in your mind, going back to the state of mind you were at when the beatings would happen, what was making you stay? Was it a hope? Was it still love for this man? Was it almost like a shock? Like, what is the psychology of somebody in that situation?
Mine was both hope and love. And truth be told, was the validation. Not having a dad for the longest time, I wanted that manly validation. And I didn't know how much I needed it until I was in that situation. It mattered to me that he chose me. I wanted him to choose me. I wanted him to see me. I wanted him to pick me and say it's me. So with that in mind, and me loving him endlessly, and hoping that one day it's going to be me, it made me stay.
Let's talk about that first. She says she stayed, if she had to give an analysis of what was going on with her at that time, the psychology of somebody, of a victim in that situation, she says she stayed because she loved them, because she had hope that things would potentially change for the better, and because she wanted this male validation, because she didn't have a dad. She grew up in a single-parent family, and Bumpy never let her forget it. You don't know how families work. You don't know submission. You don't know male authority. You don't know male leadership. Essentially just making her always feel like she missed out on something, right? And already society works overtime to make people who grow up in single-parent households that are usually mainly female-led. So society works overtime to make those children from single mother households feel like they're missing out on something, like it's something other people had, something very critical that they're missing out on. So she says she needed that male validation. She wanted a man's love. She wanted to be picked. And I want to scream every time I hear it. I want to motherfucking scream. And every story, every single story, right? That includes a woman who grew up in a single parent household, who didn't grow up in a 2-parent, mother-father household. Every single one of them has this element of seeking male validation, and it pisses me the fuck off, right? Because this is what society does. It makes women be somehow less valuable, less beneficial, less importance, right? A family is only complete if a penis person is there. This is invalidating women. That's what this is. This too is patriarchy and male supremacy. This idea that it is men who bring value to something, and that when they're not there, the thing is incomplete. Like something critical is missing. Fuck that. Fuck that. That family was complete the way it was. All children need is a loving parent. They need parents who love them and care for them. All of these, like the way she was working overtime to try to bring Bumpy into her kid's life. And he doesn't care. He doesn't even want to be there. Because he didn't want to be there. She's trying to force him into it. And women do this over time because we have been socialized to prioritize everything masculine, everything male. If a man is doing it, it must be important, right? So children need men in their lives. She is raising this child alone, and she goes out of her way to organize it so that Bumpy comes, right? Because that's going to be special for the kid. The kid needs that. A man who doesn't even want to be there. I think we all saw that TikTok where this woman was going, it's not apple picking, what's the one with pumpkins? Yeah, to to the pumpkin patch something, and it was in the US. And the husband was cranky as fuck. He was pissed about having to be there, and he talked, openly, even in front of the kids, talked about how expensive it was going to be, how big waste of time it was going to be, how he didn't want to be there, he'd rather be anywhere else. And the kids were listening. What, you think the kids carried that as a special memory? Women need to stop this. Women need to, we need to unlearn this patriarchal supremacy thing in our minds, this male supremacy thing in our minds. We need to unlearn it. We need to unlearn it first. Especially those of you who have kids, we need to unlearn it motherfucking fast. It is not men who bring value to a situation. It's not men who bring value to a home. There's nothing special they bring. There's nothing special they bring. All children need is loving, caring adults who would care for them, who would give them, a safe environment to grow, to explore, to learn, correct them. That's what children need. Safe, consistent people who love and care for them, who prioritize their needs. That's what kids need. They don't need a man. Oh my God. Oh my God, there's nothing special men bring to a situation just by being a man. I really hate this verse. I hate it completely. So now, because she didn't grow up with a man in the home, she feels like she missed out on something. And all of society actually works overtime to tell the, children from these situations that they missed out on something. You didn't miss out on shit. You did not miss out on shit. All children need are loving, caring adults around them. That's it. That's it. Whether they have a penis or not is of no consequence. The only reason it matters to us is because we are in a society that overly values men. Oh, God! There's nothing special about having a dad. Nothing. The only thing good about it is the knowledge that this person who took part in creating you wants to continue having you in their life. That's it. That's the only benefit to it. That's the only benefit to it. To the extent that that person is even, a safe person when they're around. Because, it's people whose fathers are around, and they will be the first to tell you, I wish that nigga hadn't been around. The only value, okay, not the only value, I guess. I'm sorry. The primary value men bring to families in patriarchal society is money. That's it. The thing that single mothers don't have, for the most part, is money. That's it. That's pretty much it. There's nothing special about the penis people. Say it with me. There's nothing special about the penis people. There is nothing special about the penis people. If they fit the criteria of being loving, kind, caring adults who are safe, who give you space to grow and a room to explore as a child, if they fit that criteria, then good, they can be around. But having a penis is not enough. It's not. It's not enough, babe. Listen to me. Especially people who grew up in single parent homes. I swear to you, you didn't miss out on nothing. You did not miss out on nothing. The reason you think you missed out on something is because all of society tries to tell you missed out on something. You didn't miss out on shit. You did not miss out on shit. Unless, of course, you missed out on money, in which case, you missed out on shit. But it's some two-parent households that also kind of, missed out on money. But anyway, that's not the point. The only reason, I want us to just, really internalize this. The only reason we feel we miss out on these things is because society says it. It's the same way people used to be told, oh, women who don't marry by a certain age, you're gonna die lonely and shit. And now we're saying that, in fact, those women are like the happiest demographic. They're doing okay. That's just some lie that was being told. That was just a lie. To serve the patriarchal ends of, trapping women in marriages so that they can reproduce for men. And do, and bear the domestic labor for men. Oh, if you don't have kids, you're missing out on some. And now people are like, I ain't missing out on shit. I'm actually real good. I actually really like this. I promise you. Having a dad is like this. It's like this. You're not missing out on shit. You are not missing out on shit. You're not missing out on shit. Is it bad and sad that one half of the people who sort of took part in making you is not present in your life? Yes. Of course, it's really sad, right? It would be better if they were there and if they were a good adult and they were safe and they were loving and they were caring and they were kind. It would be good. But the fact that they're not, you're just missing out on a parent. It's not special because it's a man. Please, it's not special because it's a man. I hate this. I hate this for all of us. The elevation of men to almost godlike status, and if you don't have a man in your life, you're missing out on something. You ain't missing out on shit.
And right now, looking at everything you've been through, when you look at your daughter, because now she's also going to be raised by a single mom, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you've just said there's almost a gap that a male figure had never filled in your life. And so when this first man comes at a very tender age of 20, you take to it and you end up doing things that you have. Listen, if you want to have a threesome, have a threesome. I have friends who do that shit and I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Good, cool story. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you're in a situation where you don't want to be just because you're trying to appease someone, and that is very intimate.
I promise you. This desire for male validation, whether it's coming from your father or your uncles or whoever, it's gonna end in tears. It's not gonna end well. It's not a healthy thing to desire. It's not a healthy thing to desire. I feel like this truly is why I absolutely love, the trans community and the non-binary people. They're like my favorite people because they're saying this gender thing, we're not doing that. You people have these boxes that we're supposed to fit in, and they're like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. Non-binary people especially, my favorite. My favorite. Don't even call me she or he. Listen, I'm all of it. They, them. They don't put any special premium on masculinity. And it is this insistence on putting some kind of special value, special premium on masculinity that leads to this bullshit. Oh, you desire... I hate it. I hate that we're socialized like this. And I feel like this is part of why... What are they called? People in power, particularly conservative types everywhere in the world, sort of are really anti-queer. Because these people are not about to fit into whatever boxes that you have decided we must fit in. They're not about to value something just because you value it or you say that, oh, we have always valued this, so you need to keep valuing it. Fuck that. Trans women. Amazing. Because what are they doing? They are born to privilege and they're like, yeah, nah, I'm gonna do the other thing. The one where you people hate those people and you disrespect them and you think they're beneath you. I'm gonna live like them. I'm gonna live like that now. I feel like the queer community is like, it's like kind of going to save us, or at least queer thinking in that way, where we don't limit ourselves to things just because they were traditionally done like that. Like, the heteros are still stuck on, a family being father, mother, children. And like, it's something special that men bring to the equation. Meanwhile, queer people are like, yeah, a family is what you make it. Like, we decide what a family is. I get to make my family. Like, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna find people who are like me, who value what I value, who care about me, who love me, who will protect me, who value me. And I'm gonna make family with them. And family is not limited to what you people say it is. And like, so what if like my original family rejected me or whatever? I'm gonna make some new ones. Right? Like, it's not the end of the road. I'm gonna make some new one. Like, it's bad. It's really sad when you're rejected by the people who, are supposed to love you, the people who are supposed to be your first community. But like, if that's what they've decided to do, like, what you gonna do? They go out and they make new ones. They show us how to live, another way to live that's not limited by all of these traditional things just because we've always done it like this. So we've always, men are so important, like, children need men. Fuck that! What have men done for children? What have men done for children? In patriarchal society, what have men done for children? What value do men bring in children's lives? Apart from good old money. Because that's what single mothers don't have. That's the only thing single mothers don't have. They don't have money. And like, I hate this completely because it devalues what single mothers are doing. Single mothers are working overtime to love their kids, to be there for the kids, to provide for them, right? And then we look at them as society, and also their kids look at them and they're like, yeah, it wasn't good enough. Like, we needed a penis in the mix for it to be good. Like, because there wasn't a penis person, I missed out on something big. We need to stop devaluing women and devaluing women's contributions, because that's what it is. That's what this is. It's devaluing women and devaluing women's contributions. Love is love. What does it matter if it's coming from a penis person? Validation should be validation. What does it matter if it's coming from a penis person?
Maybe you don't have the answer for this, but like, what are some of the things that go through your head when you think about your child?
Now that I've seen it now with my daughter, being there and the validation I needed and what I went through to get that validation, I know that what I would have wanted not to end up in such a situation would be validation from home. My uncles, now that I'm older, are able to have conversations with me. So I'd feel validated. I'd date somebody and check with my uncle because we're at that level. I just wish such conversations started when I was younger. Because honestly, if they did, and if they were that actively present as they are now, situations would have been different. So knowing that and seeing how important it was, and as much as parenting is trial and error, I'll still try validating the same with my daughter to a point where validation is never something that would get her into a situation, ever. So I'd validate the way she walks, the way she talks. I'd correct it as well. I'd correct things that she does that maybe are not aligning with her, to a point where she is secure in herself. That it doesn't ring that I need somebody else to tell me this. She's just so secure and firm in herself that she knows that she is it. That's the one thing that I would do.
So, quick question. Did Sophia grow a penis that I didn't know about? Because now she's talking about how she's going to protect her kid, right? And her solution, her way of getting ahead of it, is to validate her child so that she doesn't even need external validation from anybody, much less a man, right? So how is it possible that now she thinks that's something she can do? Why is she not talking about bringing her brothers in? Or some uncles, or some best friend, some male best friend things? Why is she not talking about them? Suddenly now her validation is enough? Do you see how we invalidate women's efforts when we insist on bringing men in and acting like it is their contributions that are significant? Because that should be enough. That should be enough. The fact that she is going to work hard to validate her kid, to make her kid feel safe, to make her kid feel loved. That she doesn't need any other person's love. Certainly not an ex-wife's love or picking.
If there is a woman right now who's listening to this who is in a similar situation, what would you tell her?
That respectfully, it doesn't get better. I know they all say, oh, they change, oh, this happens. No, it does not get better. I've not had 2-3 stories that have gotten better. In fact, it gets worse. So if they hit you once, trust me, it will happen again, and then it will be more intense, and then the apology will be greater than the offense. And then it goes like that. So if this bouquet of sorry was small, the next one will be big, and then bigger. That's how it goes. Until the next moment, it's roses on your casket. Yeah.
I really love that, and I support it. Abuse only escalates. It only escalates. I feel like the way society socializes us is to sort of imagine that we're different, right? So you watch the news and you see a woman and her husband killed her, and you're like, yeah, my husband slaps me, but like, that can never be me, right? Like, I would leave before it got that bad. Like, oh, my husband is not like that. Like, he's not like that. This exceptionalism in a way. And like, I know, I feel like part of it is maybe it's a survival thing. Like, you need to imagine that things will turn out different for you than they do for other people. But that kind of thinking could get you killed. Could get you killed, especially if you're in an abusive relationship. That kind of thing could get you killed. I feel like an important lesson to learn as an adult is that you're in special. You're in special. Anything that's happening to other people could happen to you. If other women are getting killed by their husbands, it's no reason to think that it couldn't happen to you. If your husband is beating you up and other women who get beat up end up on the news dead, yeah, it could happen to you. It could happen to you. You're not special. Not even a little bit.
And I do want to also point out that it's usually the most dangerous for the woman when she decides to leave.
Yeah.
So publicly declaring it to this person is probably not the best way to do it, like you did. And I'm only saying this for anyone who is listening, man or woman.
Yes.
Because, it could go either way.
Yes.
I really want to scream at that. I want to motherfucking scream. Why are we talking about men or women? Why are we talking about men or women? Huh? How many men get killed by their women? How many? We can't go a week without a woman not being killed. Not a week. Could we go even 2 days? We couldn't go a day if we were doing it globally. We could not go one single day without a man killing a woman. And we want to talk about giving men also like safety advice. Why are we talking to men? No. Why are we talking to men as though they're the victims in this case? Why are we talking to them like that? Why is it not enough to tell women stories, and if a man is a victim, then he sees himself in her? Why do we socialize women so that women can see themselves in men, but men can never see themselves in women's stories? Oh, women can watch, male-centered shows and, still feel moved, still feel like, still connect with like the characters. Still feel like, they had something in common, like their story was somehow told, like a connection. But men cannot listen to women's stories, yeah, and see themselves in it. Why are we singling out men? Ugh. This is really pissing me off. Another thing that keeps coming up. Like, we have this stupid idea of what balance is. That if we talk about men, we have to talk about women. Like, fuck that. We're talking about abuse. Right now, we're talking about abuse. And we're talking about the abuse that women face at the hands of men. That's what we're talking about. It's what we spent the last 2 hours and something minutes talking about. This stupid idea of what balance is and equity. Yeah, like equality. Yeah, it's equality. Like when we give, when we talk about, women getting abused by men, we also have to talk about men getting abused by women because, men also get abused. Fuck that! Okay. This is like Black Lives Matter, alright? That's what this is. Do police also kill white people? Yes. Do they also kill Hispanic people? Yes. Do they kill Native American people? Yes. Police kill everybody. They kill everybody. But they especially enjoy killing black people. They especially enjoy killing black men, one would argue. But black people are like their primary target group, right? This is who they can most easily get away with killing. This is who they can most easily get away with abusing and harassing. And so we say Black Lives Matter. And when we talk about police brutality, when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, we only talk about black people. Does it mean we don't care about the other victims? No. No, we do. But we're saying these people are extremely vulnerable to this kind of abuse. They're the primary target of this kind of abuse. That's what we're saying. We're saying these other people, the rest of the demographics, have some kind of, security, some kind of privilege from this kind of abuse. They're not entirely safe, like 100%, but they're not as vulnerable as black people are. That's what we're saying when we say Black Lives Matter, and so nobody expects us to talk about the number of white people who have been killed by motherfucking police when we're talking about Black Lives Matter. So now we're talking about women. Millions of women every year. Millions. The ones who die. The ones who are abused, sorry. Millions. As young as 2, 1, grandmothers, everybody, every fucking age, in every fucking country. Thousands dead. In every country, every year. Every year. And then we want to talk about that. And we still feel the pressure to talk about men too. We're talking about black people who have been killed by police, but we also feel the need to add in a handful of white people who've also been killed by police. Meanwhile, the number of black people is pretty much countless. That's not equality, that's dumb. Okay, maybe not dumb. It's a product. I'm sorry. It's evidence of white supremacy. In the same way, in this case, this need to also talk about male victims and to single them out, that's a product of patriarchy and just this male supremacy culture we live in. I've forgotten her name and I feel really bad about forgetting her name. But she wrote this book about the canary in the coal mine. And it's wonderful, and she was a really wonderful person. I'm gonna find the cover, I'm gonna try and put it up. But she talks about how miners used to go down with a canary because they sort of have fragile lungs. And when the canary started to experience trouble breathing, the miners would know that the air quality was bad, and that even though they were not already experiencing the effects of breathing in that air, if the canary was suffering, it was only a matter of time before they would suffer. It was an indicator that the air was bad and that they needed to fall back. They needed to get out of there. And so they would. And I think I read somewhere the miners used to name the canaries, and they used to try and make sure they were healthy, and they would mourn when the canaries died. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is they would go down there with the canaries, and when the canaries were suffering, the miners knew there was trouble, and then they would and when they pulled out and made sure that the canary was and pulled back to a place where the canary was breathing well, they would also be safe. Taking care of the canary was taking care of themselves. Protecting the canary protected every fucking person. Everyone else was protected once the canary was protected. Everyone was safe when the canary was safe. And that's what we're saying here. With Black Lives Matter, and even in this situation, in this particular case where I want us to talk about women and talk about women only. When we're talking about women, we get to talk about women only without feeling any kind of guilt, without feeling the need to bring men in. Men can see themselves in that. Men who are victims can't see themselves in that. And if they choose not to, that's their problem. If we create a society, if we have laws in place that protect the lowliest black person, that homeless person sleeping in a corner who police want to just harass for no reason, if our laws protect him, then I promise you, everybody else who even had marginal safety, marginal privilege under this system, everybody else would be safer. Everybody else would be safe. Because the lowliest of us is safe. We get to talk about women without feeling guilty. We get to talk about women's problems without feeling the need to bring the men in. We get to worry about the canary without waiting to see how the men are being affected. Because if we make sure the canary is safe, the men will be safe too. The minors will be safe too. Everyone will be safe. I promise you, if we create a society where women experience less violence, even men who are in abusive relationships will experience less violence. And I'll raise you one. If we create a society, because children are the most oppressed class, if we create a society where children are safe from all abuse and violence, then every single person in this society will be safe and free from violence. Every single person will be safe because children, and in particular poor children, are like the most vulnerable. We get to protect the most vulnerable without worrying about the people who have some privilege and some safety in the system. We get to do that. We get to talk about women without feeling the need to bring men in. It's okay to talk about women. Men. Bancroft talks about how I don't have a clip for this because I just remembered. Bancroft talks about how you know how men sometimes claim that they're the ones who are being abused in relationships. Bancroft says if you want to know that it's true that a man was abused in a relationship, or at least, one of the things to look out for while you're trying to make sure his story checks out is, what does he think about female victims? Does he ally himself with them? Does he see himself in them? Does he see himself a victim in the same way? Like, does he see them as victims the same way as he sees himself as a victim? Like, I don't know. I just hate that we feel like we need to talk about men when we're talking about the problems women face. Women are being killed in record numbers. Like, dude, femicide is like at an all-time high, at an all-time high, and not just in Kenya, but like globally. And they're predicting, like, with like this whole rise in fascism globally, that it's only gonna get worse. And we don't feel like we can talk about women's problems just that without bringing in men. Listen, if a man is being victimized, if a man is being abused, then he can hear himself. He can see himself in Sophia's story without having to be name checked to feel like, oh yeah, they're also talking about men. If you're a victim, see yourself in her. You don't need to be name checked. That's it.
I feel wrong for asking this, but I have to ask, are there lessons, takeaways, things looking back that you're like, some flags you might have missed, because usually I ask, do you think there are things that you might have done by action or omission that contributed to the chaos that was your relationship? Are you in a position to answer that?
Yes. Are there flags I missed? Big ones. They were red, bright red, scarlet red that I didn't see. Why? Again, the validation. The validation and the thing that's always missing from home is the one that you'll never see. And that, in my case, that's exactly that. So I learned to always check. There's always a reason. There's never, they always know what they're doing. That's the one thing I know for a fact. The other thing would be, if they show you who they are, believe them. I know it's a phrase we always say, but
what hope do you have for your future and even your daughter's future?
Yeah.
And where would you say you are right now in relation to everything that you went through at such a young age?
I'm at a good space now. I'm able to talk about it without crying, at least. I'm also at a space where I also know I will not fully blame my partner for what happened. I had a role to play as well. I will now work on things that I know were genuinely not correct, not the ones that I was told are not correct because they wanted to get their way.
My God. Okay. So before I get into my rant, I just want to say it's good to hear that she's okay, that she's doing better. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Yeah, I'm glad that she's doing okay. Now let's talk about this not fully blaming her partner. I want to scream every time I hear somebody say that. We're so stupid. Like, society is so dumb. Like, society is so organized by abusers that, like, everything we believe is abuse apologia. Everything. Why would you think that you can't blame him for everything? Let me just play that again.
I'm also at a space where I also know I will not fully blame my partner for what happened. I had a role to play as well.
She had a role to play? Like,
A role to play.
Oh my god. I don't know when that we're gonna internalize this and we're gonna believe this, but like, there's no shared responsibility when it comes to abuse. There's no role the victim played. We are so dumb. We're so fucking dumb in this society. Like, everything. All our laws, all our beliefs, all of them, all of our ideology is like just drawn from abusers and like abusive thinking. Why would you think that there's shared responsibility here, that you had a role to play? Why would we believe this? Why do we continue to perpetuate nonsense like, oh, it takes two to tango. Oh, what's the other nonsense we say? What do we say apart from it takes two to tango? Like, we say some stupid shit. Anyway, that's the only one I remember. But like, we say this nonsense all the time. Oh, it takes two. Oh my god. It doesn't take two when it comes to abuse. It does not take two when it comes to abuse. It does not take two when it comes to abuse. Can we please begin to internalize that? We like this nonsense of believing that life has this balance, and that, when it's two people in a thing, like, everybody contributes in a way. Like, it's the way children used to fight. Like, a bully like a bully bullies you, and then like they start to fight with you, and then you fight back, and then you're taken to the principal's office or whatever, and then both of you are punished, and the adults feel like they really did something. They're like, oh, yeah, they taught you both. What did they teach you? What did they teach you? That you can be a victim and then be punished again by fucking adults who should know better? that you should not defend yourself? Like, what was that supposed to teach you? It's because we like to believe this nonsense about balance. We like this idiocy. This, and it's not even idiocy, it's like self-deception. Like, just, we like to deceive ourselves that there's balance in the universe. There's no balance. Sometimes bad shit just happens. Sometimes it's just one person and they do really bad shit to you. Sometimes you try and you're the person in the relationship trying and trying and trying, and unfortunately, through no, mistake or choice of your own, you ended up with this like loser. You found yourself in the orbit of this loser, and now you're going through the most. It doesn't take two. Alright? Sometimes it does not take two. Sometimes, and especially when we're talking about abuse, 100% when we're talking about abuse, the fault, the responsibility lies with the abuser. There is no role you had to play. I cannot believe Jules did not push back on this, because it's one thing for victims and survivors to think this, because, we live in a society that sort of tries to make it clear that, it can't just be his fault. Like, what did you do? And in her case, I think she's even told that she has a temper or something. There's no shared responsibility for abuse. There is no shared responsibility for abuse. There is no shared responsibility for abuse. There's no shared responsibility for abuse.
I will now work on things that I know were genuinely not correct, not the ones that I was told are not correct because they wanted to get their way.
In an abusive relationship, once again, there's no shared responsibility. There's no both of us had a role to play. Not in an abusive relationship. In ordinary relationships, yes. Yes. In an abusive relationship, it does not matter what your weaknesses were. It does not matter. One person chose to respond in an abusive, controlling way. It does not matter what your weaknesses were. It does not matter. I'm gonna find that clip by Bancroft. He talks about how women deserve to be in abuse-free relationships, even if they're not like perfect or like good. I'm gonna just see if I can find it. Oh yeah, there it is.
And 3, he was failing to accept the reality that a woman does not have to be all good in order to have the right to live free of abuse. That a woman does not have to be all good in order to have the right to live free of abuse. He was failing to accept the reality that a woman does not have to be all good in order to have the right to live free of abuse.
That's it. A woman does not have to be all good to deserve a life free of abuse. Everybody, every single person deserves a life free of abuse. None of us is perfect. There's no relationship that could be looked at and somebody's like, oh yeah, this one is perfect. Like, of course not. So that doesn't factor in, alright? Once everybody has this quality, then it cannot be a factor in abuse. Okay. There's no shared roles and shared responsibility in abuse. You do not need to be perfect or even to be good to deserve a life free of abuse. The abuser chooses to respond abusively. He could have left. If he was like, oh man, like this chick doesn't take male leadership, blah blah blah, she's not submissive, he should have left. What kept him from living? What kept him from living? What made him choose instead to punch him? What made him choose that instead? To sleep with everybody. Bring a woman in your house. What made him choose that? What made him choose that? That had nothing to do with Sophia. That had nothing to do with her. Abuse has nothing to do with you. He would do it to anybody. There's no person he would not do it to. He would do it to anybody. If there was a Jesus woman and that Jesus woman was brought to live with him, he would still do that to Gisazette. He would do it to her. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. Like, can we internalize that? There is no shared responsibility, no shared roles, no way that you contribute in an abusive relationship. In an abusive relationship, only he is responsible. That's it.
Where do you want to be? What are some of your things that you're like, you know what, that would be nice?
I'll start with relationship. For once, I'd want a relationship where you're not asking at all. I know it sounds cliche because your partner is not supposed to read your mind, I know. But I'd want a partner that is so in sync with me that they would know exactly what I need. And I'm also so in sync with them that I would know what to say, what to build, and what to correct. A partner that's gentle as well. And for once, because I'm always saying this, a partner that provides. For once, I'd also just want to sit and see a man being in their role and not me being always in my masculine air. Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I despise this whole masculine era thing, but I hope my trans and non-binary rant and how I absolutely love the fact that they're just destroying our perceptions of gender and all of that. Like, I hope it's just clear. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. All of this talk about masculinity, masculine and feminine, and I hate it. I despise it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. All of those are just made up things. They're just made up things. There's no reason they should run your life. They're just made up. And they're not even good made up things. Like, it's some... everything is made up, obviously. But it's some things that we've made up that are really good. Right? Like Gloria Naylor's books. Like, they're made up, but they're like fucking awesome. I mean, Roy Kent. And like that show. Made up, but like fucking awesome. And then now we have this. Masculine and feminine energy. Made up bullshit. Ugh, I hate it.
Maybe some big sister advice. The thing with advice, listen, you can choose to take it or not take it. And when I give advice, it's from my own personal experience, which is very different from yours. Yeah. The first thing that you said, where you said you would yearn for a partner who knows what you want, and you know what they want, and you're so in sync. So back to what I was saying, those aspirations to have that kind of connection, I understand, but I dissuade you from looking at that as a goal, because it might put you in situations again where you are
back to what I was.
Yeah, or maybe just maybe you get it and then you start to turn a blind eye to stuff because you think, but it's that magical thing where they know what I'm thinking and I know what they're thinking. No. Relationships everything in relationships is about communication, whether it's money, whether it's sex, whether it's children. So if somebody can preempt your needs from time to time, that's going to be nice. Yes. But when they don't, it doesn't mean that the relationship is not working. There's opportunity. Yes, there's opportunity to talk. So I just wanted to say that.
That's true.
Wait, I'd like to add something about that whole exchange. I think partly. I think what Sophia may have been talking about when she said she wants a partner who sort of knows what she wants. Like, it really took me back to her and Bumpy when they broke up, and then when they bumped into each other at like a market or something, and he's like, "Yeah, I was gonna call you. I wanted to cook for you or something," and like, it's that kind of thing. I don't know if it's so much. No, I don't want to rephrase her words or whatever. But I think that maybe part of it could easily be that she, or at least the way I understood it before Jules sort of came in with her advice. The way I understood it was she just wants somebody who's going to do the things that she wants done, right? So, for example, Bumpy had to have known, that cooking for her would have worked. And he wasn't doing it. He wasn't doing it the entire time they were together. But then after they break up, now because he wants her back, he's ready to do it. I think at least the way I understood it, part of what Sophia wants is a guy who's just going to do those things without us having to have broken up, without you trying to like win me back or nothing. But like, you just cook and you just clean You just take care of the kid. And, if she's the kind of girl who likes flowers, you just buy me flowers once in a while. And if she's the kind that wants you to come back home with like chocolate from shopping or whatever, you come back with chocolate. Like, she wants to have the security of knowing that she's not the only one holding up the family financially, and that she has somebody else who is actually working to provide for them, for her child. Like, that's it. Just do the things, right? I think men know all the things. They know all the things. They just won't do it. And, the way I understood it, Sophia just wants a guy to do the things.
Because I do wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
And I want you to find the love that you deserve.
Okay, that's that. Dido. I wish her all the best. I'm also really just thankful that she shared this. I hope I didn't come off like, judgmental and shit towards her. Like, I be judgmental and shit towards everybody else, just not her. I just want to reiterate, she had no role to play in the abuse in that relationship. Like, as soon as a partner introduces, not a partner, that's not a partner. As soon as a loser introduces abuse into the equation, then your contribution to it ends, your role ends. Like, you had nothing to do with nothing, for sure. Like, it's now his game. And in a lot of ways, it really is, because abuse is about controlling you. It's about breaking you down, bringing you to this place where you're just heavily dependent on him. You don't trust yourself. You don't believe yourself. You don't value yourself, like all of that. So, yeah, I'm gonna do the rest of the two girls, like later on. Yeah, so look out for the rest of the parts. I hope to do them like in one part each. So the Njeri one, although I suspect the Njeri one will be long. So probably that one will be a 2-parter too. And then, yeah, but the June one, I hope that one will be a 1-parter. But like, yeah, we'll see. Thanks for coming along with me. I had a good time doing this. I enjoyed it. Yeah, so shout out to Sophia for like just being brave enough to do this, and the podcast So This Is Love for finding her and sharing her story with us. Okay, cool. I gotta go. Bye. Oh yeah, what's the thing I say? Sorry. Yeah, I keep forgetting. No, not that I keep forgetting. I forgot this one time. Because, like, I don't usually do, like, the live thing, so that's new. So, yeah. Anyway, until next time, remember who you are. Love life. Love people. Stay limited.